being in a band is so much like being married to someone. You think you know all of it and you think it's all kosher, and then you learn those little nuances, like when you're with someone for like every minute of every day and you start to go like, maybe this isn't going to work.
Well, you see what people are like before coffee.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? You see what people are like when they're hungry.
Yeah.
And if they're drinking.
That's such a funny way to put it. It's so true. Like my band is a completely different band before coffee every morning. Yeah. Hey, this is Rev from The Drowns, and you're listening to the Couch Riffs podcast and potentially watching it on the internet. Today we're going to talk about food and Seattle and rock and roll, or maybe none of that. Thanks for listening. Rock and roll!
Welcome back to the Couch Riffs podcast. I am your pal, Mike Squires. This is episode number 282. And my guest is my new best friend for life, Rev from The Drowns. You know, I don't know how it is that perhaps we met very much in passing, but we didn't meet until about a month ago at a show that we were both at. But I we had been in touch through social media, as people are ought to do these days. What a jewel this man is. What a treasure. I had a great time talking with him. Rev and the band will be playing Rebellion Festival this year. They will be playing Punk Rock Bowling coming right up. They'll be touring through the summer. They have a new record coming, and I'm going to make you listen to the podcast to listen to that, because he even mentioned that maybe he shouldn't mention it, but whatever. And there's a lot of Seattle talk in this episode because, we're both Seattleites. We talk about old Seattle. We talk about new Seattle. We talk about Seattle. I love it so much. I'm so happy to be back here. And Rev shares my love for Seattle, so we talk about it a lot. It was a real pleasure to have him here. And what a cool band. What a great band. Go check them out on tour. Go buy their records. Go stream their music. And support live music. Support live music. Support artists, artisans, crafts people. These are the folks that keep the world interesting. The world is a funny place. Be nice to each other. Let me remind you, speaking of being nice to each other, be nice to me. If you're enjoying the Couch Riffs podcast, by all means, this is an open invitation to support Couch Riffs on Patreon. Couch Riffs this year has started doing a whole bunch of things. I'm organizing prison concerts now, which are obviously not for profit. I have a couple of fundraiser things coming up that I'll be doing around Christmas. I recently did the Funkadelic show. I don't pay myself for that. I pay the other musicians. That's not a pitch, but if you are enjoying this content, know that the other hours of my day aren't spent making a bunch of money. If you enjoy this content, there's a Patreon. There will be some concert footage from the Funkadelic show there. There are all the cover songs that I created during COVID and beyond, and there are some other things coming up along those lines. So I do appreciate your support. I love doing this podcast, and man, let me tell you, I love living indoors. So, I'm going to be glad to be back on tour making money also. Thank you for your support. Don't forget to be nice to each other. Treat people the way that you want to be treated, but be nice to people, okay? Don't be a dick. It's funny that you mentioned we're going to talk about food because you stop. Let's give a little shout out to Lil J because.
So that's why I said that, is because you did the most. Oh, can I say fuck?
Yeah, this is a grown up.
Great.
This is a grown up conversation.
You did the most fucked up shit to me because last week or 2 weeks ago we went and saw Rise Against and Papa Roach. Great show. Great to see the guys. And we were there. We were talking about where we lived, and when I told you where I lived, you were like, "Oh, you're next to my spot," and you're like looking good. You're looking cut. You're getting ready for tour. You're like eating better. You're going to the gym all the time. I'm in the off season right now. And so I'm not on tour. Besides Punk Rock Bowling, I'm not on tour for a few months. And you told me about literally the greatest bakery in Seattle being so close to my house that it has ruined any potential for diet I have ever had.
It's so fucked up, right?
It's terrible how great they are. And when I went there today, I've now gone there maybe 5-6 times since you told me about them. And when I went there today, they were like, "Hey Rev, how are you? How's the day?" And I don't even care about the food or anything anymore. I want that. Yeah. They're so nice and they're so sweet. And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to go do Mike's podcast." They're like, "Oh, I hope you guys have so much fun."
So I had Fat Boy Winter, lot of Rice Krispie treats because they got a variety of Rice Krispie style treats.
Yeah.
And but I still, because it's 2 blocks from my house, I go there once a week and buy a bag of coffee, right?
Yeah.
And every time I walk in there for the last couple months, I've been off the pastries and then do like on my lunatic shit. Because, it's photograph season. And so...
You're looking good. You're looking good.
That's sweet of you to say. I got a ways to go. But, the way also, in addition to being delicious, they present it in this like... It is mountainous and bountiful. It's like some kind of fucking Thanksgiving photo shoot, but for just like decadence.
Directly in front of the doorway.
Yeah,
you literally can't get into the building without seeing this massive food.
It's like a pyramid of Rice Krispie treats, a pyramid of like
they do cornbread muffins, they do biscuits,
crazy stuff.
The cookies are amazing and sold to you by like the sweetest people ever. They've got it all. Little J, shout out to Little J's, not a sponsor.
Shout out to Little J's.
They should be though.
And they introduced me to Stamp Backed Coffee, which is a local coffee roaster. I don't know anything about them except that the coffee is really good. I make it Chemex at home, and they don't have a retail location as far as I can tell. I tried to go buy a bag of coffee from them directly, but I don't think whatever address. I think that's the only place I know that even has it in town. I don't even know where else to get it.
It's great. It's great too. The roasts are amazing. And the first thing I did when I went there too was I was looking at the coffee menu, and we tour so much that we're over in Europe all the time. And like 3 years ago, maybe we went to that main square in Prague. You know what I'm talking about, next to the huge like Gothic bridge and stuff, the AFI bridge as we call it. And
is it the Charles?
Yeah. And so we go there, and there's a lady who does just a tiny little coffee stand in that square. And when we first went there, we were looking at her menu, and I was like, "What is espresso tonic?" And she was like, "Oh, it's espresso, tonic water, and some orange rind." And I was like, "That sounds insane. I'll try it." And I've made them at home since, and I've never seen them on a menu besides there. And then that's what I got today. They have one there at Little J, except instead of orange rind, they do a little bit of lavender syrup, but it's tonic water and espresso shots. And I know it sounds extravagant, but when I make it at home, it's insanely cheap to just buy like tonic water and espresso. It's delicious.
You know what I did for a little while? And I even bought one of those soda streams in order to do it. I would make either like a cold brew concentrate or make a Chemex and then put it in the fridge. And then I would cut it with lemonade, which sounds weird. And then I would carbonate it. And it's fucked up. How delicious it is.
I think people immediately are going to go like, why would you put something bitter in with coffee? But for some reason, like putting the orange in there and stuff and the quinine that's in the tonic water, it cuts the bitterness of the espresso. And all of a sudden it becomes this smooth drink. And this is like, when I was drinking, I used to do a lot of like the more bitter liqueurs and stuff like that, like the Italian liqueurs and stuff like that. So I've always kind of liked those flavors. Exactly. I'm ruining all my punk cred right now. Also, all the guitar players who tune in normally just fucking checked out. They're like, what is this coffee podcast that we're watching? Which is, I'm totally okay with that.
Coffee and liqueurs talk.
Yeah, exactly. We'll start a separate show. Oh fuck, man.
Yeah. So, congratulations, Little J's.
They're amazing. Everyone in Seattle should go to Little J's.
Apparently, there's a place up in the West Seattle Junction. I don't know anything about it.
Oh, really? They have another location?
Yeah, it's called J, I think.
Oh shit, really?
I think it's called J.
We just like their like tiny, like crappy little brother or whatever it is. I love that place.
It's so rad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in an unlikely location, like a business park.
Yeah. It's next to a UPS distribution center.
Right. There's a bunch of like semi trucks parked up all along the road there usually, and
it's across the street from the dump and where we store the school buses for the Seattle school district.
I mean, it's a crazy like this is my neighborhood.
Yeah, I love it, dude. I love South Park, man.
These are the people in my neighborhood.
I love it, dude. We live under like on West Marginal, but on the train side.
Right.
So like right, but not quite Delridge. We live underneath the bridge, kind of like Trolls on the West Marginal side, in a hidden neighborhood. Yeah,
dude, I looked at a house like back when you could afford to buy a house, like when I thought I could afford to buy a house, or maybe when exactly. Like I think it was like 2006. I looked at a house over there. It was toward the end because it's a dead end road, right?
Yeah,
and it was toward the dead end. And all the houses are on the hill side of the street. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And it was like up some stairs.
You may have looked at my house.
Is that right?
You just described where I live. And we live up like 2 flights of stairs, so much so that and they're outdoor stairs, like cement.
Yes.
And they're falling, because everything in that area is falling into the sound right now.
Yeah.
The stairs, like the first half is straight and then the top half is like this. And UPS drivers and stuff, like Amazon deliveries, they won't go anymore. They just leave it literally on the street, like to be like, yo, can you guys steal this? Because they just won't go up our like crookedy, like fucked up stairs.
Did you bolt a box down or anything for them to put your stuff in?
No, we just leave it in the hands of God.
Wow, good luck with that.
Yeah, it's they won't do it though. They won't climb the stairs anymore. Getting a pizza delivered to my neighborhood sucks too, because they won't do it.
Is that right?
Yeah, they just can't find it. Like, if you've never been to that neighborhood, you can't get there.
Right.
Because your map also tells you that it's essentially in the Delridge neighborhood on the hill.
Right.
So they don't know how to get around there. I mean, I love where I live because it's hidden, which is really nice. And I love, like, I have this beautiful view. We have a yard, we have a patio. It's great. And it's, the house is owned by a good friend of mine. Shout out, Jeff. And he rules and he gets what I do. And he's known me for so long that, like, he keeps the rent enough to pay his bills, but enough that if I'm on the road all the time and stuff like that, like we're like tattoo artists, you and I, to where it's like the money is either all there at the time when we're on the road or like nothing's happening.
Feast or famine.
Yeah. So he gets it. And so he gives us a cheap enough rent that we can afford to live in Seattle still, which is rad.
Is also a Jeff.
Is he really?
Also a musician.
Nice.
That's Jeff Angel.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
And also really the patron saint of me living indoors. He's
what a bonus.
He's a very good friend to me.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So yeah, we're practically neighbors. I got a bicycle, cruiser bike. So
yeah.
I'm home in August.
Mm.
It sounds like you're going to be gone though this summer.
I will. So yeah, the Drowns, I mean, that's our thing, right? We just like go on the road. We say yes to everything. And so, I'm gone. From now till June, I'm home, but we fly out for punk rock bowling. And then we're doing 3 shows or a couple shows with the Addicts.
Yeah.
One is announced already in San Diego. And then I'll be home until the end of June. And then June, we go to Europe. I'm in Europe for a month. Doing a bunch of festivals, going to Serbia for the first time. Excited for that. Playing Exit Festival in Novi Sad, Serbia. When they announced that, it was crazy because like we were part of the first announcement, and it was like the Boomtown Rats, who I love, so I'm excited for that. And then it was like The Drowns, DJ Tiesto.
What is that?
It's like a huge like DJ, like a massive like DJ.
I met Bob Geldof once.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What was it? Was he cool?
Super cool.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it was great. Like met him at like getting shitty catering at a festival.
Oh, that's rad. That's the best. Do you know how many dudes I've met like in line for catering and just been like, oh shit, I know you.
It's the best.
Nick Olveri. I met Nick Olveri last year in catering. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Bruce Dickinson.
It's so
Look
good.
at you, fella.
Yeah, just you're also eating the cornbread. Delicious. Oh, but yeah, then it's like Europe for a month, and then we're home for one day,
Oh, that's good.
and we grab the van and drive straight to Detroit to tour with New Bomb Turks from Detroit to the East Coast, and then we leave our van on the East Coast and fly to Blackpool to play Rebellion Festival
Oh, have you played Rebellion Fest before?
every year for the last 5 years, and we will keep playing until they tell us never to do it again.
I was there 3 years ago.
Were you really with who?
Peter Hook.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
It was rad.
Dude,
what a
it's
cool.
my favorite in the world. My favorite every year. I love it.
It's such a crazy town.
Yeah.
It's a weird little town for people who don't know what Blackpool, like not American listeners and anyone that's basically not English, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There used to be all these vacation towns for English families.
Mhm.
And then when travel became more accessible, people started going to Spain and wherever else.
Yeah.
And these seaside towns that have like every one of them's got a fucking roller coaster and a Ferris wheel. And
Yeah.
like they got the whole thing. Like it's
like Atlantic City.
yeah.
It's like kind of like it's a little more run down than your normal kind of American vacation spot, but it's like working class vacation spot. Like, you know, anyone could afford to go kind of thing. I love Blackpool.
Yeah, me too.
It's funny because people in the UK are always like, Blackpool. And I'm like, no, dude, you don't even know.
Yeah.
You have no clue that you've been to Tuscaloosa before.
It's great for pictures too.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Have you played at have you played a regular rock show there before? Like
No, but we are for the first time this year.
where at?
I don't remember the name of the venue, but
Is it the Motorhead Bar?
I think so. Because someone mentioned it to me.
Is killer.
Dude, after that, we fly to Italy for a festival, and then we're home for a couple weeks in August.
Yeah.
But then all of September is a UK tour. We're playing our first Blackpool show not at Rebellion.
I'll bet it's.
I think it is because I remember
Can't I
someone
think of
mentioning
the
that
name
place
of
to me.
that? Yeah, they've got like there's a ton of Lemmy and Motorhead memorabilia.
So
The handle of the front door
uh,
is a Rickenbacker neck.
that's so sick, dude.
Yeah, it's great.
The Marshall guys have been great to our band over the years, and when we went and played a live studio session for them, Lemmy's whole rig was there, and to see his settings was absolutely hilarious. Like, it's amazing that it's like some things are turned completely off and some things are completely dimed. Like,
There's not a lot of nuance.
no, I guarantee he didn't think about it. He just went to it and like knobbed it and was like, this is fine.
It was like, well, what is that? What is the word?
I don't need that.
I don't know. Yes.
Yeah.
No.
I don't want
Yes, yes.
presents. I don't want any presents. Right. It's just, that's like, I remember reading like a Guitar World when I was in high school, and there was this interview with Joe Perry, and like, I think Joe Perry is great. I think he's a great guitar player. I would never shit on that dude. But in the interview, he said something along the lines of how he just turns everything on an amp to 7, and it's usually perfect. And I was like, you're a fucking asshole. There's no way that's true. And like, I remember doing that as a kid and being like, why does it sound like fucking garbage? Yeah, exactly. And that's why. And that was the hardcore realization that I had at that time.
Right.
Oh,
I
man.
think that's a good rule of thumb. A lot of people will turn, like, I want to get some overdrive, and they'll turn if it's a non-master volume, or if it's a master volume thing, they'll turn the preamp or the gain up to 8.
Yeah.
And they'll have the master volume on 2 or 3. And my go-to is master volume on 8, gain on 3.
Yeah. So, I mean, for the Drowns, if anybody like listens to the albums, there's, I think if you saw us live or saw us kind of like photos of us, you would assume there'd be a lot of gain in what we do, and there's just not. Like, so most amps in general, my first go-to is put everything at noon, obviously, and then, start tweaking from there. And I'm one of those guys who sees the threshold of the knobs, so I will turn like the mid completely all the way up and all the way off to hear where I need to go in between. But for every festival we ever play, if we're using a supplied backline, I always just turn the volume up more than normal and turn the gain on like 1 or 2 and start from there. And I usually don't go much more than that. I'm way more of, I also am like a really punchy rhythm guy. Like my right hand is like annoying. My tech like hates it because I just ruin bridges and stuff all the time. But I hit super hard. And so I can usually get a little more bite out of amplifiers without needing all that extra, But my start is to like turn the gain all the way down. Like,
I don't know why more people don't do that.
I mean, I get it. Maybe maybe it's a false sense of confidence to have like a really kind of guttural, thick, gainy tone, but it's just not my thing. Also, it's application based, right? Like what we do is it's like souped up 50s and 60s like rock and roll, really just made, by punk rockers. So I'm always just trying to have like a Chuck Berry guitar tone that's just faster than normal. So I get it. Also, it's good to say that having a cleaner tone doesn't hide your mistakes. So if I fuck up, everyone knows. And it is nice to have that comfort of like a safety blanket of having like a lot of gain.
That's true. That is true.
But so that's my go-to though, is I turn the gain down immediately. I'm like, start from 0 and go from there.
So it took you a while to get there, probably. Everyone starts with like, distortion.
Absolutely.
You get your first distortion pedal.
Yeah.
Probably a Boss DS1 or a Tube Screamer or a Rat.
Mine was a grunge pedal from
Nice.
DoD. Yeah.
Nice. I think those were kind of expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a birthday present when I was a kid.
Nice.
Yeah.
But we get there, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, with that in mind, let's start with kind of where you came from.
So,
where are you from?
So that's a great question with an annoyingly long answer. I'll make it quick. So I was born in Tacoma, at Madigan Hospital in Fort Lewis. My dad was in the Army.
Okay.
My parents are from Federal Way in Des Moines. And
Gateway to Fife.
Yeah, Gateway to Fife, exactly. And they had kids really young. My dad was like, "What the hell am I going to do?" And he jumped in the Army immediately. And so when I was a few months old, we moved to Alaska. I lived in Alaska from the ages of like 0 to 8 in
Where at?
Fairbanks and Anchorage, Fort Wainwright and Fort Richardson. And that was cool. Yeah. And then we came, like my family here, my extended family is from like Yakima and Enumclaw. And then my mom's extended family is all from Minnesota. And so we came back here and said hi to everybody when I was 8 and then drove immediately to Virginia. And I lived in Newport News, Virginia for a couple of years. And then we lived in Germany. We lived in Germany for 4 years, I think, in Hanau, which is outside of Frankfurt on the Rhine. And then we moved back to Virginia briefly. And I got in a ton of fights and got kicked out of multiple schools because I was like a middle schooler now. And then we came back here. My grandma got sick. And we came back to Washington and we moved to Enumclaw. So I did all my high school in Enumclaw. So technically, I say that's where I'm from.
Military brat.
Yep, very much so, yeah.
Let me ask you this, because we've already covered that you tour a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been a subject that I've talked about with people before. I moved around a lot as a kid. You moved around a lot. And I am very, very comfortable touring. I'm comfortable being the new person.
Absolutely. That was, my wife talks about that. My wife is from Taunton, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston, like South Shore. And she had never really left the coast when she moved here to be with me. And she's never been to Europe. And we talk about that all the time about how, she loves traveling, but it always is a big thing. You know what I mean? Like it's an event. Right. And for me, it never was because I moved so much as a kid. It's just part of life. And I started to get really uncomfortable when I'm home all the time. That's when I get stagnant and shit gets weird. It's like, it's a part of me. Because also when I was a kid and we were moving so much, we also were traveling all the time. My mother is like a huge traveler, like an adventurous soul. And so we were always going other places too. So if I'm left to my own devices for too long, that's when I get uncomfortable. So touring is just a part of me. It's like, it was the next evolution of what had already happened for being in the military as a kid.
Same. I mean, minus the military part, but I should probably go talk to someone about it.
No, it's one of those things like my wife mentions it all the time, but it's like, I can make friends anywhere.
Right.
I can start conversations anywhere, and that's because I have my father being in the military to thank for that. As much as it didn't feel like a blessing as a kid.
Right.
It absolutely was now that I'm an adult. And I, being on stage, it made me more comfortable with things like that. Like, I'm not afraid of people watching me or fucking up and things like that. And I've never had that fear. And I think that
being the new kid in school and walking in the classroom, and every time, like, there were years where I went to 3 grade schools, right?
Yeah.
And every time you walk in, there's that thing where you're like, today we have a new student, kids. And then you have to be like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, that was a huge, like, that, it was constant for me, especially like we were talking about middle school. I got kicked out of a bunch of schools and I was always doing that. But what's funny is, like, to bring everything full circle, that's how I learned how to play guitar. Is I moved to Enumclaw, which for folks who don't know is like, it used to be a very rednecky farming town.
Right.
It still kind of is, but now there's more of like outdoorsy kind of REI people are out there and stuff. But it was very much like I had gone from the military where there's an equal smattering of all races and kinds to this very white, very farming small town vibe. And so that one was probably the most shocking of all of them, where like everyone had been in the same school together since they were children. In the military, everyone's known each other for 1, 2, 3 years and they leave.
I'll back you up for a second because I was in the military.
Yeah.
One thing that is greatly absent in the military is a bunch of rich kids.
Yeah. Well, there's some officers' kids around sometimes, but it's not like a huge deficit for sure.
Sure.
My dad was an NCO, so we
right.
Yeah.
No, not very many privileged people end up in the military.
It's not the same, but no, it's not. And like coming to Enumclaw, that was the biggest shocker for me. And that was the one where immediately I was like, okay, like these kids and I are very different.
Right.
Most of them have never left their town. And now that I'm 25 years, whatever, out of high school, it's like most of them didn't ever leave the town,
Right.
But so I get there and I'm already into like punk and ska. And there's this kid, I played drums. I played drums all through school. My mom got me into drums when I was in like the 5th or 6th grade. And
Nice.
I loved it. And I was real passionate about it. And they put me in advanced band because of how many years I had been playing the drums. When I got to Enumclaw, and I wasn't good enough. Like, I really wasn't. Like, no one would have known that. But I kind of knew that when I got there. I was like, damn it. Like, all these kids are better than me. And there was one kid who kept kind of giving me shit every day. And keep in mind, I had just come from Newport News, Virginia, where I was one of the only white kids in a couple of those schools. And I was getting in fights all the time. And like, I got kicked out of multiple schools for kind of, either defending myself or being an asshole. It was like middle school, And so I was like, if this kid keeps fucking with me in band every day, I'm just going to lay him out like prison rules. I was like, I'm going to let people know in this small redneck town that no one's allowed to mess with me. Right. I was like, I can't. And I kind of knew I had to do that. I was like, I'm going to like a kid, or else it's never going to end. That's how you see it when you're a kid. And I was like,
Sure.
All right, well, if he keeps going, I'm going to give him a day or two and then I'm going to lay him out. And so I come into school and finally it's one day this kid just gives me shit and I turn and I drop my drumsticks. I was playing snare and I was absolutely destroying a part. I was not doing good. I was like playing a part completely fucking wrong. And he was like, you're terrible at this. And I dropped the sticks and I was like, do you want to fucking go? And he was like, whoa, dude, like, calm the fuck down. He's like, look, I saw you in a Rancid t-shirt a couple days ago. All right. Like, I know you and I are like some of the only kids who like punk rock in this town. Why don't you learn something else so we can play together? Because I'm obviously a better drummer than you. And that's my longtime best friend, David Casey. And I started playing guitar because Dave told me I was terrible at drums. And so that's I never wanted to play guitar. But I was like, oh well,
Shout out
I
to
do.
Dave for the inspiration.
Yeah, still one of my best friends, and I love him to death. I was just over at his house for Easter with his family, and yeah, I started playing guitar because he was better than me at drums, and I just wanted to be in a band, so
Right.
it made sense. And so that's the voyage started about 14 there.
Was your mom or your dad a musician? Like, why did your mom get you into playing drums?
So my parents were neither of them are like, if they sing songs, they make them worse. Like they're
Right.
not talented in the slightest in that way. My mom played trombone in high school, but that's as far as it went. They're both huge fans though. Like
Yeah.
we went to concerts so much, like just like it was just like a normal thing that we had to do. And so because they were such huge music fans, that's where it started for me. My first show was 8 or 9, so we had just moved to Virginia, and it was at in Williamsburg at Busch Gardens. I saw the Temptations when I was like
Nice.
8, 9 years old, and I didn't like see them and go, that's what I want to do. But I do remember talking to my mom, and me and her have talked about this, where like I was like, that's their job. That's so cool. What a cool job. Look at all these people clapping for these guys.
Right.
And so I remember thinking
Nobody
that.
claps for the gas station attendant.
Yeah, exactly. But they fucking should. It's drastically
Right.
harder.
You should clap for everyone.
And so,
Good job.
yeah. And so like we were always going to shows just constantly. And so, you know, we could probably go deep in like Freudian in there and say that like, you know, I saw my parents enjoying this thing and I wanted that, you know, I wanted to make them happy and things. But realistically what it was I was always just like, you know, probably because of the military thing, I was like a kid who wasn't afraid to be on a stage.
Right.
And it seemed like a natural evolution, really. Like after a while, it's just like, okay, well, I can do this and I can play guitar now. And I can, you know, I'm not afraid to be in front of people. I may make the best of that, you know. And I think my mom saw that I was actually good at that and not good at a lot of other shit. So terrible in school, like horrible at sports. Yeah.
It seems like a common theme where people who end up lifelong musicians, whether it is career or hobbyist, like they try a lot of things as kids and they're not good. They're not good at it, or it's frustrating. They don't take to it quickly.
Yeah.
Time moves a lot slower when you're a kid, right? And so if you put a week into something and you don't see results, you're like, this is taking forever. Now I'm like, well, I don't know.
Yeah, 100%, man. Like 100%. And like I did soccer and I was fine. I did baseball and I was mediocre. And like I did pretty good in wrestling. I wrestled for a while, but none of it made me happy on top of me also being good at it. So,
Right.
But music immediately did.
So what year is this when your dream of being a drummer was crushed?
97, 98.
97.
Yeah, 97, I think. Yeah.
And you're in high school?
8th grade.
8th grade. So you're just a baby.
Yeah, that was the beginning. And then I jammed with Dave for a bit, you know, just kind of screwing around and stuff. And then I had my first ska band. My first band ever was a ska band 2 years later. And so then that band, we played shows constantly. Our first show out of Enumclaw was at the Ballard Firehouse. Yeah, we drove all the way there. We took Dave, our drummer, we took his Volkswagen bus. It broke down halfway. We had to call the trumpet player's uncle, who I'm sure he's not watching, but he was in the porn industry.
Oh.
And so I have this
talent or behind the scenes?
A talent. And so it's real awkward. So he's got to pick up all of our gear and we don't want to miss the show, even though our van broke down. Yeah. So he drives like from wherever he lived, picked us up and then told us stories about the porn industry for an hour on the way to Ballard. We played our first show and then he took us back home.
Was he telling you stories on the way back too?
Yes. Yeah. And it was awkward, but it was, he saved that was the beginning of a long touring life for me.
Right. A lot of colorful conversations in the tour van.
100%. Yeah. But no, that was my first like real out of town show. We went and played the Ballard Firehouse. But then that band played together for a long time. Like,
what was the play? Was it the Redmond Firehouse?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Kate, did Kate do that?
I'm not sure who I used to book through. I played there a bit with a different band a couple years later, but yeah, I saw a ton of shows there back in the day. Like I loved the Redmond Firehouse.
Did you guys record your ska band?
We did, yeah, and I hope no one ever finds it.
What was that experience like the first time because it's kind of like terrifying, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I was making the joke there just because it's not the best music. We're in high school, right? It's the songs about how
Sure.
like school sucks and stuff.
Right.
But it was at Acoustic Chambers in Kent, which I don't think is there anymore. But so we get there and I have my amp, like, which was a tiny little Fender 112. I think it's like stage 100 or something. It's got like carpeting, like gray
Yeah.
carpeting around the outside.
Yeah.
And I was playing an Ibanez RG, which was the guitar my mom got me.
Awesome.
I had covered it in AstroTurf because I was in a ska band,
Sure.
which is a great idea. I don't know if you've ever thought about doing that because
Until
you just get a rash from here to here on your
Dude,
arm.
I have on my arm right here.
Yeah.
Still, and I don't play that style anymore, but
Yeah.
I have a patch of hair right here from my arm
Yeah.
rubbing against the edge of my guitar and my body going, enough. And
Yeah, exactly.
it grew extra hair just in the spot where my arm would hit the guitar body.
Just rubbing away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a nightmare. It was a stupid decision that I made to put AstroTurf on my guitar. It was funny for like 10 minutes, but yeah. So we go to Acoustic Chambers in Kent, and I remember I brought the amp there, and I was nervous, but we were also kids and having fun, so it was like a cool experience. But I bring my amp out, and the engineer is like, "No, that's not going to work." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "That thing sounds awful." He's like, "I got something," and he goes in the back and he brings out. I don't remember. Yeah, I mean, I was 16,
Right.
15. I don't remember what it was, like a Princeton, a small Fender amp that was way nicer, obviously. But it had BTO spray painted on the side. And I was like, what's BTO? And he was like, oh, I was the roadie for Bachman Turner Overdrive. And like, he was so stoked to like tell us that. And my ska band was like, cool.
What's that?
The Taking Care of Business band. Cool,
Yeah.
But yeah, it was BTO's like old roadie, supposedly. But he had a bunch of like BTO sprayed gear, which was rad. And it was cool. It was cool to make a record. It was actually for our drummer's senior project
Oh, wow.
that he had like started that early. We made that album, and it was cool. It was fun. We did some local radio stuff. We, like every good ska band, we broke up after high school.
Mm-hmm.
and I went and just played with some other folks.
Did you guys tour as kids? Like in the summer, did you go?
We would do small shows around the area, but no. And I played in a band later that would do some shows out of town, but the real touring I didn't start until years later, like really going on the road constantly.
Well, as a kid, you're going to school. You said you weren't a good student.
Oh, terrible. Yeah. Garbage.
I was in all the smart classes,
Mm-hmm.
but I also got bad grades.
Yeah.
Because I didn't care that much.
The thing is, I'm sure as you can already tell, I was a bit of a problem kid. And my father and I didn't have the best relationship back then. And everything that he wanted was academic. My dad is a genius. He's insanely smart. He's a chemical engineer. He works for Boeing now. He was in the Army doing that for them. He was a helicopter mechanic, just very like his brain sees things in the order they're supposed to be, and he does them.
Sure.
And I was never like that, but that's what he wanted from me. And so I think it was a bit of rebellion too, to just be like, man, fuck school. It was like a bit of that like juvenile, like I'm not going to make him happy kind of thing. So I really just didn't give it the time. And then, to bring this conversation full circle, you got math and English and stuff. Those teachers weren't going like, oh, good job. But my drama teacher was, and my band teacher definitely was. Shout out Judy Rogers.
Yeah, they were clapping
100%, and was just completely like being like, you have to do this. This is what you're supposed to do. So I think that combination of things really made me go like, oh, I see what like this is what I'm supposed to do.
So when you got out of school, did you immediately like move to Seattle and start trying to find a career band, or were you still trying to have a backup plan?
No, so I the backup plan was just like never really an option, to be honest. Like, anything that seemed like a backup plan was because I needed money at the time. Like I was coming home from tour and things like that.
It wasn't a backup plan; it was a or a plan B. It was just
a pit stop.
Gap holder.
Yeah, exactly.
Stopgap.
And so I was in a band so right when my ska band broke up, I immediately was asked to be in another band in Tacoma. It was like a weird rock and roll band. And we played around for a while and did a little bit of out of town stuff, but nothing too crazy, like Oregon and things like the Spokane, things like that. And I had moved to Seattle. Dave went to college. He went to Shoreline, and I just followed him. And so we moved to Shoreline. I lived in a closet for $100 a month, a literal closet under the stairs like Harry Potter.
Yeah.
We had this door, and it was enough to fit my twin mattress under, and the stairs, like if I brought girls home, it was hilarious because the stairs were like this over our heads. So I would always have to be like, you have to like get really low to like lay in the bed. I'm sorry.
Right.
But I did that for a while. I worked at a pawn shop as an instrument guy for a while. Like,
which pawn shop?
I worked for a chain called Super Pawn for a while. That's not around anymore. They got bought. But
I also worked at a pawn shop.
Oh, really? Yeah. So I worked at the Super Pawn on 198th or 199th and Aurora, where there was no Costco there yet.
Right.
This is only Seattle people are going to give a shit about this episode because we're talking about all these spots that are like neighborhood only. But yeah, there was no Costco there at that time. We lived on 198th and Aurora, and I worked at a pawn shop there as an instrument guy for them. And then I worked at they would send me to other shops to work on their guitars and stuff. And I didn't have a tech background, but I was like the only one who knew how to do anything. And I could solder. I've kind of always known how to solder.
What an interesting world that is.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you mean the tech world?
The pawn world.
Oh, the pawn world is it's
insane.
So here's why I got out of that. So I was enjoying working with instruments, but that was the end of it. Like the people I worked with were fucking crazy, and it was sad. Like it was a sad business to be in because no one goes to a pawn shop and is like so stoked about this pawn shop.
Everything's going great.
Yeah, exactly. And that comes from a place of someone who has pawned things,
Sure.
to make ends meet.
Yeah, whatever.
And so I was working at one in Auburn, same chain. It was right across the street from a casino. And they obviously did that on purpose. And I remember I was in there, and at the time it was like a newer Xbox had just come out, and there was a mom selling her kid's Xbox in front of the kid or pawning it to get money to go to the casino. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I got to get out of this industry. And so it served its purpose, but yeah, I had to get out because it was gnarly, dude.
It is gnarly.
Yeah, because also like people don't know about I feel like most people don't go to pawn shops anymore or like if someone hasn't pawned anything, they don't know that the general rule of thumb is that when you pawn something, they're going to give you 10% of what it's worth. So if you default on things, you're literally selling whatever this thing is that's important to you for 10% of what you paid for it. So it sucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had to get out. I also knew it was like, this is like almost what I want because it has to do with guitars sometimes, but I kind of knew it wasn't, And then I went and because I could solder and I could work on stuff like that, I got Dave. Once again, this is like a reoccurring theme. My friend Dave is always helping me out.
Dude, you got to introduce me to this guy.
I will. He's the best, man. We're still business partners to this day too. Like he's just the best, man. But so Dave, he and I, we had started living in Georgetown together, and we had moved down there, and we had a house there for a while, and we had started working on some music that ended up becoming a band called Success that I was in for like 12 years, and it was just like punk rock stuff, like super fun. I always wanted it to be like if Tom Petty started a punk band. Like we had an organ player and like a lot of like Americana guitar tones and stuff, and just super super fun. And that was my first big touring band. Was Success. Got all these amazing opportunities, but so Dave ended up, he worked for a company that contracted through Microsoft for like AV, like low voltage, like audio video installation. And they were looking for someone, and he was like, I got a guy who can solder and fix things better than anybody when it comes to small electronics. And so also I'd never graduated high school. So being a high school dropout, all of a sudden I have a job working with Microsoft doing like AV install and making a crazy good amount of money at a young age, like in my 20s.
And Success is happening, and have you toured yet? Or
yeah, and
so it allowed a little bit of flexibility.
It did, which is insane to think about. That the bosses were okay with that because Dave, me, and a guy named Austin, our bass player, all worked there and would still go on the road together. And for weeks, months at a time.
Right.
Which was insane that they allowed us to do that because it essentially just like took half their workforce or whatever at that time for that department. But they were cool with it, just like it was a cool time because we were also kind of like learning the ropes. We got some really cool opportunities. We put out there's one record called Radio Recovery that people really enjoyed, and we just played our final show ever. We like reunited for one final like goodbye show. That was awesome. But that band got a bunch of cool opportunities, and that gave me my first big taste of like constant touring.
Right.
We toured.
When was this? When did it start? And when did
it started? Early 2000s, like 2006 maybe.
Okay.
And then and then just kept going for like 12 years. And we toured with like Mel and Colin. We did multiple tours with those guys all over the U.S. And then we toured with 7 Seconds twice. And those guys became some of our best friends.
We talked about this. I'm a big 7 Seconds fan.
Those guys taught me everything. Like the lessons I still put into play as a touring guitar player now, I learned from 7 Seconds. Like I'll always be in their debt. And they're still good friends. We're going to see them at Punk Rock Bowling in a couple weeks. And I'm excited to hang out with them. And whenever we play Sacramento or Reno, those guys always come out and see us. And they were like the father figures in the punk rock world that I needed. Like they taught me everything about like how to take care of a band, how to treat people on the road, good and bad. Like I learned from them how to like, if someone's trying to screw you over, that you have to get like a promoter or something.
Right.
Like you have to get that money because your family has to eat. That's a quote from one of them about how you have to kind of attack what's the best for the band to continue. And I owe those guys a ton. We did 2 tours with them and they were just the best. They were like, it was crazy because they're like these people that I put on a pedestal because I love 7 Seconds so much. But also I
discovered them when I was in the 7th grade, which would have been 1985.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Their first record came out in like 80, which is crazy.
The drummer on that record was a guy that was hanging around at the house where I lived at the time.
Was it Troy Mawat?
No.
Okay.
I want to say he was a friend of my uncle's. Maybe his name was Rich. He played on not the first record, but the first 7-inch that they ever did.
Dude, I'm going to ask him about it in a couple weeks.
He gave me my first real skateboard. He gave me
That's so rad.
A GNS.
So those dudes, like, I was talking to Kevin on one of those tours. I remember talking to him and he was explaining to me, like, I'm a huge Husker Du fan. And I was talking to him about that. And he was explaining that in like 79, maybe, Husker Du came to Reno, which is insane to think that this was like 79.
Right.
And then him and Steve just went, oh, this is what we're going to do this. Yeah. Like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. We're going to find a way to be in a punk band. And it was like Husker Du just showing up. But it's crazy that was like 79, 80. You know what I mean?
When I think about it, I'm always like, oh, well, that was like 1982 or whatever. But no, like, look at the fastbacks.
Yeah. Oh, man.
That's 79.
When I saw you a couple weeks ago, that's the first thing I said. I was like, I'm excited to be on the show. And also, like, I love the fastbacks. And you did an interview with them.
Yeah.
The last song I wrote for Success was called Kurt Block, about Kurt Block.
Wait a minute. You don't say.
It was awesome too. It was a good song. It's only on, like, if you can find it, it's like it's on vinyl on a rare comp from Soda Jerk Records here in Seattle. But we wrote that song. We played a festival with the Fastbacks, and he was there just smiling the whole time. But that song,
awesome.
that song, I just love Kurt Block. I love who he is. I love what he does. I love all the bands he does.
He's a treasure.
He's absolutely. He's a Seattle treasure, and I think he's one of those folks that, like, people don't really. If you're not from here, you don't really realize how influential he was in a lot of different facets of the sound here. But also, like, we have a few of those. When we're on the road all the time, I'm sure you get this, especially with like playing with like Duff and stuff. I'm sure you get this, but people want to talk to you about grunge stuff because you're from Seattle,
right?
And like bands from here. And I almost always go like, sure. I was around for some of that, but also, have you heard the Fastbacks?
Right,
Have you
everyone's
heard Gas
Oh
Huffer?
man, Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
You ever heard of them? And it's like, yeah, I have. Great, they're cool.
Yeah, but I've seen some of I've seen some of them around.
Yeah.
But I'm always like, do you know? And I'll start naming other bands that were good at that time. Young Fresh Fellows, speaking of Kurt
Sure.
Block, like bands at that time that were amazing that nobody really talks about. And obviously, like the Gits are one of the greatest bands the world never knew.
Right.
And like I love Steve. I've seen Steve a few times in the last few years, and but the Gits were amazing. And I feel like when people talk about Nirvana or people talk about these Seattle bands that deserve to have the conversations about them, I would never dispute that. There are other bands that it bums me out that more people don't know.
Did you ever see Image?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
I just got the opportunity. I had a band with Lonnie, one of the guitar players, after they broke up, but I just got a chance to play with Davey C, who was the drummer in that band. Like a punk band, all black punk band. Image, like Jimmy spelt backwards. I saw them. That was one of the first bands I saw when I moved here, and it just was like overwhelming.
There were so many. That's the thing is, like in my youth, there were so many shows like that where I would go to and I'd be like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. I'm sure this happens in every city, and it's just not true. It wasn't always going on in every city, you know? We had such an element, especially in like the late 90s, early 2000s, there was such an element of like so many people trying here that it was just overwhelming. You could go to, any club, the Sit and Spin. You could go to the Deviate, the Rock Candy. You could go to any of these clubs and there's just great bands playing. Like we were talking about Alcohol Funny Car before we turned the cameras on. That band was amazing. Like Ben was phenomenal. And I got to see them with the Posies.
Also, a lot of people don't know.
A little while ago.
Got both of those bands are such great bands.
Love Battery. Like there's so many bands that people just don't know that were great during that era. So.
Anything that Dick Rossetti does.
So you and I think I briefly mentioned my dick story to you though, right? Did I tell you about that?
Whoa, buddy.
Well, I'm not talking about our text shade, but I told you about my Dick Rossetti story, right?
It's coming back to me now.
Because I love the fact that I'm doing this show now and Dick so well because he won't remember me, but he will remember the situation. I had a bunch of friends at 107.7 The End.
Yeah.
And I worked at a tattoo shop, one of the many jobs I had to be able to go on the road and come back.
Which tattoo shop?
Artcore in Georgetown.
Okay.
I worked there. It's not around anymore, but it was a great, great shop. And I worked there and at this time I was living with Dave. Just so nobody's worried about Dave. Don't worry, he was fine. He went to college in Studio City to become a recording engineer.
Oh, good.
And so when he was gone, I moved in with these two tattoo artists that I worked with, Mick and Joby. And Joby and I used to go to 107.7 The End and do tattoo stuff all the time. And one day they were like, someone from The End, I don't remember which, Harms maybe, Andrew Harms, I think that was that guy's name. But one of them called us and was like, hey, we think it would be funny if someone got their ass tattooed on air. Would you be into that? And I was like, yeah, I'll bring Joby. Like, who's going to get tattooed? And they're like, well, we haven't found anyone. And I was like, I'll get my ass tattooed. And they're like, okay, cool. Like that was easy. And I roll up and I got Dick Rossetti's face tattooed on my ass on air. And he was there laughing his ass off. And I don't think he would ever remember that, but I do have Dick Rossetti's.
He remembers. Because I mentioned it to him and he goes, oh, the tattoo kid.
Oh, that's so, because it would have been, that's so funny because it would have been my 20s too.
Right.
But I've met Dick maybe twice.
Right.
We're not friends. I have his face tattooed on my butt. Not yet. But I do awkwardly have his face tattooed on my ass.
Dick is friend to all.
He's also a Seattle treasure.
He is a Seattle treasure.
Yeah, man. There's so many of those. So many of those that but to carry that conversation on, man, we go all over the world. And I always try to be like, cool, well, you like this band. What have you heard this band?
Right.
Have you checked? Like I bring up the Gits a lot to people because the Gits were perfect in every way. They were the best punk band that never got the chance, And you and I live not far from, like, just on the top of the hill of West Seattle. We have all those celebrities, it's kind of Seattle celebrities, legends painted on the power boxes. And Mia's is up there, like just on the top of the hill from where I live, like up from Luna Park. And I always try to do that, man. I try to bring up all these, like, and your band, you and I briefly at that show talked about, like, I forget how we got on the subject, but you brought up that you were in Alien Crime Syndicate.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, with Jeff? And you were like, yeah, totally. I loved that band. Also another band that didn't get their due. Great, great band.
I mean,
It was cool, like power
It was a
poppy
fun,
stuff.
but really fun band. I'm playing a show actually with Joe the next Saturday in Bremerton.
Oh, awesome.
Not with his new thing, but
Rad.
we've been talking about trying to figure out. We had an aborted reunion show.
Jeff told me, yeah, because Jeff knew that I was a fan. And because when I was younger, I used to go, see you guys. And he was like, hey, man, we're going to be getting back together. And he was so excited. And I was bummed when it didn't pan out. So I hope it does. I was
excited too.
And I'm telling you right now, no pressure. But if you want the Drowns to play that show, I will make it happen. Just let me know.
Amazing.
Because I would love to do that.
Amazing.
The other day, Tammy and I are in the car and we're driving around just like listening to some tunes. We're going up to the Tulip Festival. We went up to the Tulip Festival in the North End. Beautiful. Yeah. It was awesome. My wife's a huge gardener. It's like a big
another regional reference.
Yeah. I'm telling all these people in LA are like, man, fuck this episode. In your last episode you put out was like, that dude was like a legend, the like bearded, I forget his name. It's like a bearded dude talking about playing with all these like amazing bands in LA.
Oh, Frank. Yeah.
And they're going to be like, who's this fucking dork? Like this guy's talking about the baked goods that
Tell us more about the best milkshake in fucking Wedgwood.
Yeah. So we're Wedgwood, I don't know, but I'm like, I got a few references. We're headed up to the Tulip Festival and I just had like some playlist of mine on shuffle and Tammy was like, oh, what is this? And I was like, this is Mike's old band. And it was like, let's break the record. Let's break it now.
Nice.
And I was like, this is Mike's old band. And she was like, damn, this is really good. And I was like, I told you. It's great, man.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
We did some fun stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And Jeff's awesome. Love Jeff.
Everyone in the band was awesome, except for me, maybe. I mean, I
love that you know that now.
I was pretty great when I joined, and then I sort of slowly deteriorated. I think I had a lot of expectation when I was a kid about what it was going to be.
What it should be?
Well, I was in 3 bands at one point. I was playing with Duff, Harvey Danger, and Alien Crime Syndicate. I was touring so much, and I was just like, well, this was my dream, right? And then I would come home and, how am I going to pay my rent?
I've 100%.
What? And then meanwhile, your friends from back home or whatever are like, hey, man, whatever. They think there's this weird pressure that happens.
Yeah.
I don't feel it anymore. And I feel like I don't get it anymore. Not like I used to.
I know
probably
exactly
can relate to this.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, people also, especially nowadays, it's very different because there's no money in it anymore. Like
Right.
Not the same that it was in like the early 2000s, late 90s. Because record labels are, it's a completely different ball game these days.
They're not coughing up the dough.
No, and not in the slight. They're not taking risks anymore.
Right.
But it is very different, and I think people still have this blown out view of what it is. Like people will see photos of like that Exit Festival, right, that we're playing. That'll be the largest crowd I've ever played to. It's in Serbia, and it's like 200,000 people.
Well, that's a large crowd.
And so that's nuts, and that sounds nuts, and it will be nuts, but that doesn't mean I'm buying a house.
Right.
And that's, I think, what people don't understand. Also, what we do is so much more of a working class version of it. And I don't mean like sound or anything. I just mean like, we don't wait out for opportunities. We believe in the music and we believe in what we do. And that's why we go do it. And that's the end of the thought process. Whereas you got a lot of folks who like wait on the money and then they do that stuff because the money's there.
Lemmy told Whit Crane, the singer of Ugly Kid Joe, this, and Whit Crane told me, and I am now telling you, we are working musicians. That's what we are.
Mm-hmm.
We go to work. And if, like anyone, if, you want to stay living indoors, you work. You want to, it's not glamour. Sometimes it's more comfortable than others, but usually it's a little uncomfortable always.
Yeah, it's a weird, it's like a gray area that we're in because everyone around us thinks we're fucking crushing it. You know what I mean? Because they see us doing all this massive stuff, but then they don't think about everything in the background, like all the people you pay and all the the percentages that get taken and things like that. It's like at the end of the day,
you cash a check, let's say once every few weeks.
Yeah.
And if you're lucky, and but that's the only check you see for months, maybe.
Yeah, and that's really how it goes, you know? Like at the moment I'm not making any money. You know, I get little things like, you know, fucking Spotify ain't paying anybody shit. So it's like I get little things here and there.
Mailbox money.
Yeah, but when I'm on the road, I'm doing great. But
Right.
keep in mind that's like half the year, right? So like, you know, the other half of the year, what am I doing? I'm struggling. And like I'm fine and I'm comfortable. And me and my wife, my family, we're good. But it's one of those things to where like I absolutely could quit this and go do something else where I made a ton more money, but I would never ever want to do that in the slightest.
Which means you couldn't.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. With the first time I heard the first Clash record, like it was like the clouds parted and they were like, this is what you're gonna go do. Go do this now. Like take a message, go. Like if people listen to Success who haven't heard my old band that I talked about a second ago, the same theme was there that is with what I do with the Drowns. It's like positive message, positive rock and roll, trying to inspire people with a little bit of a platform that I have. And that has done so much more for me than any amount of money I've ever had in my life. You know what I mean? Like it really has. It truly has. Like it's made everything more beneficial that I've done with my life is doing that. Like
people told me for a long time that money couldn't buy you happiness, and I didn't believe them for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. It seems like a quick fucking.
Well, I grew up poor.
Yeah.
And the melancholy, and so I just thought, well, you know, certainly it's the circumstances, right? But then as soon as you're, you know, comfortable, like that doesn't make you happy.
If it fulfilled me, I'd still be doing AV for Microsoft right now.
Right, of course.
And it fucking did not.
Right.
In the slightest, you know?
Right. You could afford food delivery every day if that was the case.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd probably own multiple houses by now. Nah, man, it's true though, dude. It's like, you know, you got to do what makes you happy. We don't have much time here. You know, it's like if I could get one kid in the crowd to quit thinking about their shitty relationship with their parents or their shitty teachers for an hour,
right?
That means more to me than anything else. Because so many bands did that for me when I was young. You know, they kept me in a mental state that made me not want to jump off a bridge or do a bunch of heroin. You know, and so if I can give that same gift to somebody, I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? Like that's all that I want is like to pay back these people who gave that gift to me via the arts. You know, so I just want to keep doing that.
Kevin Seconds was one of the first people that I ever met that I grew up listening to and thinking like, well, this person, like, you know, put him on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And I've still never seen 7 Seconds.
That's such a huge bummer.
I believe so.
That sucks.
I saw him play at the Color Box with his band 5'10".
Yeah. Yeah.
And I sheepishly stopped him out on the sidewalk after his show, which I couldn't, like, in my mind, I was having a hard time, you know, wrapping my head around the idea that he wasn't like being pursued like Eddie Vedder would have been walking out of that place. In my mind, I was like, no one is stopping me.
Yeah.
Like no one's in the way. No one is competing with me. And I stopped him and I talked to him and he was the most amazing. And I walked away from that situation. Like I couldn't believe that he gave me so much time.
Yeah, of course.
And just shot the shit with me about just whatever.
Yeah. I wasn't blowing smoke. Like they literally taught me how to be a musician, how to be in a band. And what I mean by that is like how to treat everyone.
Right.
For better or worse. And one thing I learned from that was that the way they would spend time with their fans, like that wasn't an isolated incident that you had with him.
Right.
That's just who he is, which is fucking beautiful. Because how many people have we met without naming names in this industry who are the fucking opposite? I would say it's, for my experiences, it's like 70-30 for how many people I've met who are not the best people, garbage fucking people, and treat people who pay their rent, being the fans, like fucking garbage.
Right.
And then you've got 30% though that are like some of the greatest people you'll ever meet. And so you hold on to them. And like you create those relationships with those people if you are one of those people, which in my opinion, you are too. It's like,
it's really disappointing when you meet someone who you have put on that pedestal,
Mhm.
and you just are striking up a conversation with them. Might be at a festival, who knows where it is, some place where catering, where like everyone is a fucking peer. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't care if you're the headliner or the very first band.
Absolutely.
At catering, we are fucking peers.
Working class.
Fuck
Absolutely.
you. Everyone waits in line. Everyone's got a wristband, a red wristband, or a little ticket, and the person at the front of the line takes your ticket, or you don't eat. So that makes us peers.
100%.
This isn't some show schedule bullshit. And, I know some people just want to eat or whatever, but like, I don't know. I've sat at some great tables, had great conversations, but on the occasions when someone gives you the impression that their opinion of you is you're some kind of fucking time vampire fanboy that just wants to ask them about the solo on their second record or whatever, which is not my, like whatever.
I mean, I
the
have
thing is.
been that guy, but I feel like I get people assuming that's what it's going to be sometimes.
It sucks so bad.
It's the worst. Yeah, it's the worst when you meet someone who you truly admire in this industry, and then that person ends up being kind of a shithead. Yeah. It just sucks because and like, so my wife is, like I said earlier, she's from Massachusetts, and she is like an old, like, hardcore chick. And there are bands that I've played with who she loves, and almost always, like when I saw you at the Res Against show, she doesn't want to meet those people.
Right.
She goes like, no, I'm good. Like, we went and saw Rancid. You were at that show too. We went and saw Rancid and Green Day, and great show, Smashing Pumpkins.
What's
awesome
the name
night.
of those kids that opened up? They were awesome.
The Lindas.
It was so good.
Absolutely.
Holy shit.
Yeah, dude. It was such a great show and such a good time. And the guys in Rancid are good friends now. And I love them. Especially Matt has become a dear friend of mine. And I was like, do you want to go say what's up to the guys? And my wife was like, no. And I was like, no, but I can tell you right now they're awesome. She was like, but I'm still good. I love them. Right. I love their music. I love that you guys are friends. We're okay at a distance. And that's how she is because of this same thing. She's met some of her idols, who were just garbage.
Right.
And that sucks. So I try to be the opposite of that. You know what I mean? I try to be, if someone, and I'm always cool with everybody. Obviously, if someone's being a wiener, I'm going to be honest with them. Like, you do get some of those folks who are a little too pushy and stuff, obviously. But at the end of the day, we're all just people, right?
Right.
Everybody likes the cold side of the pillow. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's laying down being like, oh, I love my mom. Like, this is a real thing. The toughest guy in the room still loves his mom. You know what I mean?
Of course.
And so I try so hard to give back because I've been gifted so much from so many people. Like, and a lot of people that we know, like, I used to work for the Pearl Jam guys, that, and I think my NDA is up, so I think I can say that. But no, I used to work for them. And
were you down at the warehouse?
Yeah,
working with Rob Skinner.
Working with Rob Skinner.
Popsicle.
Yeah, yes, and like I love Rob. I love Popsicle. I love Coffin Break. Rob is like the sweetest curmudgeon known to man.
I love Rob.
Yeah, he's awesome, and also another unsung hero of our area.
Absolutely.
Who has done so much over the years, and I think Popsicle, that band specifically, Rob didn't get his due with that. The songs were amazing, and the album where he's on the front of it, like there's like angel wings or something. It's a phenomenal record.
Yes.
But yeah, I worked for those guys, and that was the same thing. To where, like, when I worked for them, I thought, I had this image of what they would be, and they were great. They were all insanely sweet to me and like super nice.
Right.
And it was a great experience in my life to have worked for them. And I quit because I wanted to go on the road more, and they needed somebody.
Walk to work if you were living in.
I was in South Park, so it was really close. Yeah. And it was a super cool job, met a bunch of celebrities, and once again, I'm not going to name names, but it was that same 70-30 thing where like some were rad and some were not. So, but it was a really cool experience. And those guys were the same thing. They were really sweet people. And they could have gone either way. You know what I mean? It could have been one of those situations where I worked for a band I didn't care about as people, but it was the opposite, where they were super, super sweet. Yeah, it was awesome.
Everyone in that organization is really cool. And anytime there's a benefit in Seattle, no matter how great or small, you can set your clock by when, like that Pearl Jam is
Yeah.
somehow involved or has given or donated stuff to be auctioned.
Absolutely.
Or like everything.
Tim will show up. Tim Beerman will show up and just
So great.
hand, and then help out. Like, no, it was a really great experience. And I got that job through, because they hire musicians. They hire like punk rockers to work in the warehouse. And so I just had friends there. Will from the Hollow Points, which is a great Seattle punk band, another band that never got their due. And then Adrian, who's a dude, I don't know if you know Adrian Way, but in a bunch of great hardcore bands for a long time, like Crutches, Marginal Way. But Pearl Jam just hired punk dudes, because
Right.
Pearl Jam at the end of the day are just punk dudes, and so it's one of those things where that's like, we're just talking about the good ones right now. Like I said, there's plenty of bad ones, but they just helped out because they could. And when I needed a job, and also they also hired our keyboard player shortly after that too for Success, because they were like, well, does he need a job? And I was like, yeah. And they hired us because we were home from being on the road. And so, and they're, doing fine. They're buying tons of houses and stuff, but they're still looking out for the little guy. And that's what it's all about, to bring that conversation full circle with 7 seconds. It's like trying to pass that on. And we try to do that now with the Drowns too, to where we try to, like, if there's a young band really putting in the work, we want to bring them on the road and want to help them out, because we have our little bit of a platform to do that now.
Let's talk about the genesis of the Drowns, the arc, Martucci, and what you have coming up this summer.
And so obviously a ton of touring. And here's an exclusive. The label might get mad at me for this. We have a live record that's coming out. We recorded live at Rebellion last year at Rebellion.
Oh,
It's
rad.
coming out of Rebellion this year. So Pirates Press Records, I love them. They're the best. They're not going to get mad at me. But
So that's September? Is
August,
that right?
the beginning of August every
okay.
year. And so we have our live at Rebellion album coming out this year, which we're really excited about. It turned out great because the crowds there are unreal, and they're like on fire all the time, and everyone is so just stoked for the music. So to put those conversations together, so the Drowns had been around for 2018, maybe we started, and it was because me and Andy, who was the last keyboard player in Success, like Success had kind of fizzled out because some of the guys had like real jobs and buying houses and stuff, families.
What was Dave doing in 2018?
So at this time, Dave was working for Microsoft still, like doing the AV stuff.
Got
it. Dave also had kids now and
good for
had a house.
Man.
Dave's doing great. He's still doing fine.
Good.
He is a constant in my life. It's so funny. Like every story, I have a reason why Dave was involved. But so he should be here. Really, I don't know where Dave's at right now. But so
he's here in my pocket.
Yeah, he just walks in. He's like, "Hey, dude, I thought you would need me." No, so the Success had like slowed down because of that. Like real life had showed up, and that happens. Right. And Andy and I wanted to keep going, and we had a friend named Jake Margolis who lived in LA, who had been in a bunch of bands. He was in Madcap back in the day. He was in Time Again. He was in the Briggs. Like one of those tours with 7 Seconds was 7 Seconds, Success, and the Briggs toured together. And Jake and I fell in man love immediately. He's an idiot as I am on the road. And just like, I think people love or hate this guy in the band, but there's always one guy in the band who's just like a fucking goof,
right,
and like can't take anything seriously. And that's like how he stays alive. And I am that guy in my band. And Jake was that guy in his band. So when we got together, people hated it.
Double down.
Because we were so stupid. And so Dave couldn't go on the next tour 7 Seconds asked it to do, which a few months later on the East Coast, it was 7 Seconds, Bishop's Green, and Success. I was like, well, Jake can do it. And my band was like, yeah. So, but we brought him on the road because he and I were really dumb together. And so we just became friends instantly since. And so years later, Andy and I had started working on some material because we didn't want to stop touring and we wanted to pursue a new band. And so we had reached out to Jake, and he had just kind of ended what he was doing. He was playing with a band called Shell Corporation for a while, which was like a Bad Religion-y kind of band that were awesome. And
great name.
Yeah, and they're a great band. Great band. Shell Corporation put out some really good records. They have an album called Mandrake that's phenomenal. The lyricist, who's now Jan, he's now a pilot. He like doesn't really do music stuff anymore, but he's an incredible like wordsmith, kind of like Greg Graffin, to where like a very educated dude. And yeah, Shell Corporation, it's completely underrated punk band that probably won't ever get the attention they deserve. But so it had ended for him too. So it was kind of kismet to where all of our bands had kind of stopped at the same time. And so we started The Drowns, and we didn't have anything. We had no records, no recordings. We wanted to record in Sacramento with a buddy. So we booked a tour on our reputations alone and went on this tour on the West Coast. And it was great. Just from like, basically we were like covering Train in Vain by The Clash and like fill in time where we could. But just the songs we had written for that, we already knew they were going to be good. Right. And then we recorded in Sacramento, made our first record, View from the Bottom, pitched it to Pirates Press. They were like, we don't know if you're ready for that yet. Then we recorded 2 songs up here in Tacoma with Jesse, the guitar player from the Oi band Noise. And immediately Pirate Press was like, okay, you're good now. And so they picked us up on our second release, and we've been putting out records with them since. So it's kind of been this.
They're from San Francisco, right?
Yeah. Bay Area. It's Oakland. Yeah. And they just the best people. If you're going to have a label, it's like, that's what you want. It's like, they actually give a shit about what they do. They care about the musicians, like being able to keep going. It's awesome. It doesn't feel like a rat race with them there. You know what I mean? They want everybody to be comfortable and, like creative control. It's, we get everything. It's awesome. But so they were helping us out right basically since the first couple of years of the band. And so we put out records. We had a few guitar players, and we just tour so much that we ended up losing a couple of those guitar players for that reason. We're on the road all the time. And we had our tour manager, who is a guy from Ireland named Simon, had started playing guitar with us. Simon rules. Great guy. He knows your friend Fluff. Okay. Simon's a great guy. I love him to death. Great guitar player too, just amazing musician. And but he couldn't do the tour schedule, which we understand. And so we had gone back to being a 3-piece. And there's a band called Booze and Glory from Europe, an Oi band, and they like street punky band, and they were doing their anniversary show. They flew us out to England for that, right? So we're playing in London, and the drummer, Frank, this like tiny little Italian guy, comes up to me and he's like, "Why are you avoiding my friend?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Why are you avoiding my friend Christian?" And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And he's like, "You're not responding to him on Instagram." And I was like, "Oh." And I go into that, like, like the area with like you don't really know these dudes, but
here's some messages from some people.
Yeah.
You check it once every couple weeks.
Yeah, exactly. And there was one from Christian Martucci, the amazing guitar player, who, I could rattle off his entire back catalog, but he played with Dee Dee Ramone, he played in Black Star Riders with, members of Thin Lizzy. He's amazing.
Incredibly talented guy.
Yeah. And like dudes from
Great
Slipknot. Hang. Yeah. Just an incredible hang. And he was just like, "Hey man, I'm a fan. I love what you guys do. I've been playing your records on the road on tour with Corey Taylor. Yeah. I love your stuff. I'd love to record you sometime." And I was like, "Oh shit, cool." Cause he's in Bend, which it's like 6 hours maybe from us. And I was like, "Oh, that's so cool." And so Frank was like, "Good, talk to him. He's a great guy." I was like, "All right, sorry." So I start talking to Christian, and we're both on tour at this time. And we just strike up friendship immediately. Like it's like we've known each other for years. Right. He immediately was my brother. Immediately. For better or for worse, it happened right out of the gate to where all of a sudden, we knew we needed to, like, we were going to do stuff together, right? We started talking about recording, and then, like, we didn't have another guitar player, and he was like, "I'm free if you guys want to do anything." And I was like, "Well, if do you want to come on the road with us? Do you want to tour, play guitar?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure." And I was like, "Well, here's the problem though. We leave in 2 weeks for a European tour, and in less than that 2 weeks, we have a sold out show in Tacoma with MXPX, and then the first show of that tour is a recording a live album in Blackpool." And he's like, "Cool, no problem." So his first show with us was a sold out show with MXPX. Second show was recording the live record that comes out this year. And he killed it because he's like incredible.
Yeah,
I never could have done that.
He's something.
But so now now it gelled so well that he was like, "This is all I want to do. I want to play rock and roll that I love with my friends, and then I want to record bands while I'm at home." And so
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was perfect. It was like once again, like I just got lucky. Like the stars aligned.
Right.
And now he's stuck with me forever.
Kind of surprised that Dave didn't introduce you guys.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, he's met Dave. So it's fucking hilarious that I didn't even think about this.
Dave is the godfather of his children.
Yes. Dave recorded the live album.
Is that right?
We brought Dave to Blackpool and he recorded the live record.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. No, Dave rules. Now I got to introduce you to Dave. I have to.
I must meet this fella.
But no, man. So now I get to play with Christian and he's hilarious and he's a great guitar player and we're very different guitar players. So
Right.
it complements the band. I think the band, it helps that we're so different. It works really well. So
Bringing in a new personality into the van. When you guys are in Europe, are you not a lot of van and trailers? Are you guys in a splitter with the gear and the
we do. Yeah.
the partition
Yeah,
back?
we did a Sprinter. Yeah. And then we loved the one in Europe so much that we bought one here. And so we have our own Sprinter here that we do the same thing with.
Nice.
It's just easy. It's an easy, because we do hotels every night too. So, if you can do that and make it work, it's awesome. The only downside is we bring so much merch with us nowadays that we might be ending up putting a trailer on some stuff just for merchandise. But yeah, we tour the Sprinter.
That's a great problem to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can always, look at the spreadsheet and see if you can drop ship to a couple clubs.
For sure. And we definitely have done that. I mean, like you said, it's a good problem to have. Like, people are still buying your stuff. That's awesome. Because realistically, at this point, we're glorified T-shirt salesman. Right. That's where the actual money comes from these days.
I'm out here promoting my new T-shirts.
Yeah, 100%, dude.
Yaka-daka-daka.
Yeah, that's really what it is. Hard goods is where bands make their money these days. So.
Right.
But yeah, you were saying personalities wise, like he fit right in, which never happens.
Right.
It's like all of a sudden, and I would say even to the point to where like he and I had a couple like disagreements on the last tour, like brothers do, to where we immediately were like, oh man, we must really give a shit, because we were like, both arguing about a point that was really good for the band. But it's like one of those things where like, you just immediately, he was my brother. And now if he ever tries to quit, I'll probably kill him. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Like a real brother.
Yeah, like a real brother. Yeah. No, he's happy, I'm happy, and we're working on new material now with him.
Awesome.
And it's turning out great. I have some stuff I'll send over to you, but
awesome.
Yeah, man, because he's also a great engineer and his studio is really cool. Yeah. And I hope more bands go and record with him in Bend, because it's awesome. It's kind of like a destination too. It's like set off in the mountains and pretty. And he lives like on this gorgeous river. So like if you need to clear your head or something, go walk out to this river. It's awesome.
I rode my motorcycle down to Bend once to go see ZZ Top play.
Awesome.
And that was the only time I've ever been there.
I had to Google ZZ Top a couple days ago,
because you never heard of him.
The Beards guy. No, because someone had told me that they started as a Zombies cover band.
Is that true?
2 of the members were like faking being the Zombies in the US, and then they just like that ended up being the beginning of what became ZZ Top.
Is that true?
Google it. Don't quote me, but it's very similar to what I just said. It's like, because someone said that. I think it may have been Martin at Georgetown Records, who owns that record store. But I was having a conversation about ZZ Top, and someone mentioned that they kind of like 2 of the members started as like a Zombies cover band, and then they became ZZ Top.
You couldn't pick 2 more different bands.
Nope. Yeah, it's like no. Yeah, it's just drastically like Southern bluesy. But I think it's because of the addition of Billy Gibbons. Right. I think he wasn't the dude. I think it was Dusty and the drummer. I mean, people are going to shit on me for not knowing the drummer's name, but
Frank.
Thank you. But I'm pretty sure that's true.
It's like the rare band where I know the name of every.
You looked cool as shit there saying that just now. You look like you were just like, yeah, of course it's fucking Frank.
Frank, you fucking dipshit.
You fucking idiot.
His name is Frank Beard.
Is it really?
He's the one that doesn't have the beard.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
It pisses me off still to this day that Billy Gibbons plays size 7 guitar strings. I hate that.
Look at that right there.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Speaking of meeting people
Dude.
At festival catering, one of my greatest
That's so rare.
Stories, like I almost never, like I sat there rapping with him for a while. That's a set list from the night that that we played with him.
That's so rad.
It was a 2-piece set list on the base of his mic stand. And I was like, oh man, I'm going to see if he'll sign my laminate for me. Because he's like one of the greats.
And
one of the absolute greatest.
And he obviously did, which is badass.
Well, I was like, hey man, I hate to bother you, but will you sign something for me? And he's like, oh yeah, sure, man. And I'm like fumbling, like half nervous. And while I'm fumbling, it was like this, it was like I dare say he's rehearsed it. I mean, it was the smoothest shit I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And maybe it's my memory remembering it, just being very impressed. But he reaches, he's in pajama bottoms, by the way, with a suit jacket, like backstage, just comfortable.
That's awesome.
He reaches in his pocket and he pulls out this like a silver cigarette case. And he clicks it, and he's like, and it's almost like this one-hand movement. He pulls that little picture out, and he sets it on top, like closes and sets it on top of the case, and he's got a Sharpie on his lanyard, and he hands it to me, and then it's gone. Everything is gone, and then he's just standing there, and I'm holding that thing. It was a fucking magic trick.
That is the raddest, most like pimp shit I've ever heard in my life.
Right?
Like that's so smooth. It's probably just it's just the ease for him to have his routine to do that. But that is fucking awesome. That's a perfect memory.
Absolutely. And he doesn't have like, his stage clothes he changes his pants pretty much, I saw him at Whole Foods in LA once. And, he's dressed, he's not he's not in sweatpants or whatever at the Trader Joe's. He's not in his workout gear or whatever.
Yeah.
He's, yoga pants. He's he's dressed.
Like some celebrity folks can disguise themselves a bit. That guy, just no chance.
Right.
With that beard, no chance he's ever hiding from a crowd. Unless he maybe tucks it in, but then they would notice he's tucking it. You know what I mean?
Well, he also just isn't like other people. Like he just...
No, that's awesome. But that's to bring this whole conversation full circle. It's like, that's awesome. That's awesome that he was one of those people who was one of the cool ones. You know what I mean? Because that's what you want.
With a cool ass magic trick.
Dude, so this is a departure, absolutely. But you said cigarette case. Can I tell you the craziest story that ever happened to me while recording?
Does it involve getting shot and there's your cigarette case stopped a bullet?
No, I wish that. Now it's going to pale in comparison. So we were working on a record. I believe it was the Lunatics EP. The Drowns were down in LA, and we had a day off. Jake was taking his kids to do something, but Andy and I wanted to go see a movie. And our longtime merch guy, Colombian George, great guy, lives in LA. We always bring him out. He's like the sweetest dude ever. We were like, hey, we really want to go see this movie, which at the time was coming out. It was called A Color in the Shape. And it's like a crazy science fiction-y kind of mind-bending film. And it was nuts with Nicolas Cage. It's just an insane story.
Yeah.
And we wanted to go see it. And at the Alamo Draft House, which we don't have here, and I just love those theaters. I think they're great. And it's cool to get a meal, right? So this is off subject. All the guitar players and stuff can turn off right now.
There's no off subject here.
But it has something to do with rock and roll. But so we're recording and we go to this movie. George takes us there, which is awesome. But we got tickets last minute. So we had to sit in different places, right? So I'm in the back row, and there's a seat to the right of me that's empty, and there's 3 people, and then Colombian George, and then Andy unfortunately had to sit up front, right? But we get to see the movie, so we're excited. So I sit down, and about 10 minutes into the film, and I swear to God, this is 100% true. About 10 minutes into the film, this very tall black guy walks in who looks like Morpheus. He's dressed, he's bald, and he's got a long trench coat on, and he has a frilly vampire shirt. Maybe this is common in LA, but he has it's a button up and a vest, and he's got this frilly shirt that almost looks like he's going to do Shakespeare or something. And he sits down next to me 10 minutes after the movie started. So he missed the whole first 10 minutes of the film. Sits down, orders his food, right? and he has one of those pens that lights up like when you press, and he's like, he orders his food, and in this movie, it is kind of a fucked up movie. Like, it's like really intense and gnarly, and a bunch of crazy shit just happens to this one family, and it's not good. It doesn't end good. It's like the movie's good, but the story is fucked up.
Right.
It's supposed to be. And so he, whenever anything fucked up happens to the family, like somebody gets sick, somebody gets hurt, you know, like a kid breaks their legs, things like this, he's laughing ecstatically. Like, and it's uncomfortable how much he's like, and I shit you not, he laughs like this. He's sitting like this, and he goes,
Sometimes I nervously laugh out loud in movies when fucked up things happen.
Well, I understand that, but it's like every single time. And the whole, like, people are like turning around and looking at him when like a kid gets hurt and he's like, right? So
Please tell me it's Dennis Rodman.
I mean, it would be awesome. It would, like, I hope. My first thing went to, like, my brain was like, this guy's got to be fucking around. Like, he can't be being serious, right? Like, he showed up late and he's like being kind of a nuisance. But it gets crazier. So he gets a burger and a milkshake and fries, right? And he's dipping the fries in the milkshake. I won't blame him for that. It's delicious. Yeah. I get it. But here's where the cigarette case comes in. And I swear to God, Colombian George will back me up on this. This is exactly what happened. He opens up the cigarette case and clicks it, right? It's empty. I'm sitting next to him just like trying to watch the film, but like, what the fuck is Morpheus doing, right? And he just goes, he grabs the French fries, he grabs 3 of them, puts them in the cigarette case, closes it, puts it back in his pocket. Now, keep in mind, this film I'm watching is like a fucked up acid trip, right? And so I'm like, is the director of this film paying maniacs to show up? And like, is this part of the experience here at the Alamo Drafthouse?
Right.
Because I have no real reason why the cigarette case is holding French fries now in his pocket. Like, try to put that together, right?
Yeah.
Like, it makes no sense, right? And then movie keeps going, he keeps laughing, and we're at the most climactic part of the film. He leaves. Gone. Doesn't watch the end of the film. Last 15, 20 minutes, gone, right? And I'm like, what the fuck just happened? So as the movie ends, I'm not doing well. Like, this happened. The movie was crazy. I'm in a weird spot mentally. And I walk out. I see Colombian George, and he's like, what was with the fuck? And I was like, I have no clue what was with that guy, right? And then we're explaining it to Andy because Andy was in the front. And I'm like, and then this guy who looked like Morpheus walked in, and he was laughing at everything, and he was putting French fries in the cigarette case. And we're like, oh, what the fuck? That's crazy, right? So then we get in an elevator and to leave. It's on the 3rd floor. We parked on the 4th floor, right? So we get in the elevator. We press 4th floor. The elevator goes down to the 1st floor, opens the doors, closes. Goes to the 2nd door, opens the door, closes. This is like 2 a.m. It's in a mall. The mall is closed. Goes back to the 3rd floor where we were, opens up, stays open. And we're like, oh, that's fucking weird. So we hit 4 again, goes to the 1st, opens and closes, goes to the 2nd, opens and closes, goes to the 3rd. This sounds like a setup for a joke. It's not. I swear to God, this is just what was happening. So we realized that that's happening. But then a couple who were in the same movie walk into the elevator. And I'm about to explain to them, I'm like, hey, so we've been trying to get to the 4th floor, and it's only going to the 1st and 2nd and opening. And then when I look up, do you know the band The OCs?
Yeah.
It's John Dwyer from the OCs and his wife or girlfriend or whatever, this partner at the time. And I'm like, all right, so now I'm in an elevator with this guy from a band I love.
Yeah.
After this situation, and I'm starting to think like maybe I'm like not doing well. I'm like, maybe I'm having like a break.
A lot of weird shit
maybe I'm having a break with reality, right? So I look at John Dwyer from the OCs and I go, hey, so we're trying to get to the 4th floor. I see you're pressing the 4th floor. It's not working. So he's like, yeah, sure. Presses the 4th floor. It goes to the 1st, opens and closes. Right. Goes to the 2nd, opens, and the 3rd. And he's like, well, that's weird. And I'm like, yeah, right. So we do it again. So we've now done this like 4 times. We have. And then John Dwyer and the lady leave. And we go to the person at the counter at the Alamo Drafthouse, younger guy. And we go, hey, so we're having this problem. We can't get to the 4th floor where our car's parked because the elevator isn't going to the right floor. And the person from the Alamo Drafthouse, this guy looks right at us and goes, I don't fucking live here. and he walks away. We're not doing well. Like all of us are like, what the fuck is happening? So we end up walking through this mall trying to find stairs, and the custodian ends up being like, hey, what's up? And we're
What
like,
are you guys doing here?
and he shows us how to get to our car, and then we drive back to Jake's, and we keep recording at the studio the next day. You can cut this out if you want. I'm glad I told you that story.
I don't want to.
That's a real thing that happened.
I want to know who the dude is, though.
Me too. If anybody out there knows, please let me know, because it was insane. It was absolutely insane. I've tried to like, over the years now, I've tried to like figure out why. Like maybe he has like a hamster at home, right? Likes French fries, right? In the cigarette case, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, he's saving his doggy bag.
I guess some for later. 3 fries. Yeah.
You sure it was 3?
Absolutely. I guarantee it. That memory is burned in my brain.
How'd the rest of the recording go?
Great. Yeah, it's great. I love it. Yeah, it's a really great EP called Lunatics.
I mean, fitting.
Yeah. Yes. Fitting. I never put that together till now, but yeah.
It's fitting. Have you ever encountered the OC's guy again since?
No, we tweeted at him that it happened, and he was like, yeah, that was a crazy night, essentially. Right. But no, I haven't seen him at any festivals or anything. I'm waiting for that moment to be like, check it out. You and I saw Color Out of Space together. Yeah. Wouldn't it be awesome if it was like this thing that John Dwyer actually does, and he just like plants people like that to like have these experiences?
But he's like, oh yeah, that was my guitar tech.
Yeah.
And then he's like, hey, Frank.
And the guy walks in, he opens up a cigarette case, eats a French fry, and he's like, you call me John?
Oh, you need another French fry?
Yeah, they were just John Dwyer's French fries. That's what he was like. He gets fired if he doesn't save some. After the elevator, they got back to the car where he was waiting.
Maybe he's the driver. He got there late because he had to park.
He had to leave go get the car
early because he had to go get the car.
That's right. And then right when John Dwyer opens the door and gets in, he just hands him the French fries from the case. He opens the case, sprays it out.
Eat hot fries. He didn't want to burn his mouth. Why would he do that?
Yeah, it was a crazy night. It was an absolutely crazy night. So yeah, Christian's in the band, and he's a great guitar player. Oh man, Christian said some nice things about you. Yeah.
He's a sweet man.
He's a great guy. I was texting him about coming over here today, and he was like, "Oh man, I love that dude." He's like, "Make sure you tell him hi." Yeah.
He told me after the recording stopped, great stories. He told the great story. You probably know the story.
Yeah. Yes.
But he neglected to mention the name.
Yeah.
But
he also has some great stories about Dee Dee Ramone.
Yeah.
Like with because he toured with Dee Dee Ramone right before Dee Dee died. He was in Dee Dee's band, went to Japan with him and stuff.
Yeah.
He's got some cool stories. He would be great for this because he's got some of the best stories.
He's been on the podcast. I would like to do some of the guests that I've had from the earliest episodes in this setting because I feel like it works better than the phone conversation recorded.
Yeah.
Looks better, sounds better.
I'm a big podcast guy. I love listening to podcasts in general. I'm glad that kind of came to fruition. It podcasts grab a lot of what I loved about radio as a kid,
right? And
and allows you to kind of like, if it's your thing and you're into it, to just like basically mainline that, which is really cool. And I still listen to a lot of guitar podcasts, and I'm a nerd for guitar gear, and I have this horrible problem at home to where my wife, when I go like, I'm looking like I just got a Les Paul Jr. a little while ago because they did like a whole run of like a limited run of dark walnut stained guitars, Gibson did. And I was staring at this Junior for so long, and I have this problem to where my wife was like, it's a tool for work. So I just bought it, and that's how we're going to go broke. Like, that's why we can't afford a house in Seattle. It's not actually, because the prices are high. It's just that she doesn't say no to me buying gear. So
for people living in Seattle, this will not be a shocker. For people that live outside of Seattle, I'm going to tell you a story right now, and you're going to feel this in your every molecule.
Yeah.
I walk my dog. I live in a neighborhood called South Park. It's kind of one of the last, kind of like your neighborhood.
Very
It's like
working
one
class.
of the very working class, last kind of little pocket of old Seattle, right? There's a very small little business district. The coffee shop that Little J's there. There's a legendary bar with an unbelievably delicious hamburger.
Yeah,
called Loretta's.
I used to work there. Absolutely.
There's a pizza place I haven't tried.
Southtown Pie, really
There's
good.
a lot of taco trucks.
Absolutely. Mexican food is in my opinion, is the best in Seattle, is in that neighborhood.
Yeah. But other than that, not much. Like you gotta drive, 15 minutes. You gotta go to Burien to grocery shop.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I'm fine with.
Yeah.
And I have a house. Rent a house. The house is maybe 900 square feet. Fucking maybe. I've lived in bigger apartments, right? But it's great. Just me and my dogs. Around the corner from me, I walk past this house every day. It's for sale. And I'm like, well, let's just have a look. So I look it up, right? You get on the whatever real estate app you're using. The house is 860 square feet, right? And there are no trees on the lot. It's a corner lot with a chain link fence.
It's probably nothing special.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's like a 50s era build. So it's not like a little bungalow, like a craftsman bungalow or anything. It's like 50s shanty. It's $590,000 for this tiny house.
That's a great deal in Seattle.
Right.
Which is fucked up.
But it's the size of an apartment.
Yeah.
But all I can, and what I can think of at this point is like, it probably has a cracked foundation for that price.
Yeah, for sure.
And it'll probably go for $700,000. It just reminds me, like, I love Seattle. I don't really ever want to leave the area.
Yeah, of course.
But,
I will never live anywhere else. I love it here. I'll live as close as I can afford. But that is absolutely a problem. Like there on Cloverdale near you, do you remember the house with the Smurf spray painted on the front?
No.
There was a house on Cloverdale that was condemned. All the windows were busted out. It was boarded up. It was condemned. And there was a Smurf graffitied on the front.
Closer to like downtown.
Yeah. It went for like $700,000 just because they bought the lot. And they had to get rid of the house. But that's the other thing.
They leveled it and put townhomes.
Exactly. And that's the other thing that people don't think about in this area is it's like yes, you might be able to get that house you were talking about for that price. And it would be kind of shitty for how much you're paying. But also, you're probably not going to get it because some investor, possibly from overseas, who doesn't even live in the city or anything, but some investor in general is going to put down $100,000 more than asking price and outbid you because they can. So just to grab the lot and turn it into something later, which is a bummer. We don't have the same regulations as the East Coast has for saving buildings that are historical. Like in Boston and things, you can't do that to some buildings. And Seattle, we don't have as much of that, which is a bit of a bummer. A lot of the places that I loved as a kid are gone, and I get it. It happens all the time. Gentrification happens and stuff, but I do wish Seattle would have a little more preservation in mind at times for some of the places that we have, because we have an amazing history. I love this city and I'm a nerd for the history of Seattle, and some of the places are so unbelievably cool and have super cool backstories. And like people who aren't from here don't know about like the fire that burned everything down in like 1920 something. And, because a guy kicked over a hot glue bucket, this cabinet maker, and it lit the whole town on fire and burned it to the ground. And that's why we had to rebuild with like metal and cement. And that's why we looked like the city of the future. But there's because the buildings that came from that some of them aren't being saved. You know what I mean? Maybe some of them aren't as significant as like, the Space Needle or the Showbox, like these, which are very significant, but it's like still part of our history. So I really wish they would save it. And South Park, the neighborhood you live in, has a great history of like always being an immigrant community. And that's amazing. Like Irish, Italian, Mexican, now that's where they could live here in the city and still work in the city. And so it created this really cool kind of ethnic melting pot that made that neighborhood so rad. And that's why I loved living there for a long time too, man. And I loved working at Loretta's, best burger in town. BuzzFeed voted the best burger in Seattle, or best burger on the West Coast, something like that.
I think it was like voted best burger in the country.
It could have been. It could have been. But I mean, I remember immediately the owner, Scott, who's an incredible friend of mine, and I've known for years. I'm actually getting coffee with him on Wednesday.
Nice.
Love him to death. I remember Scott immediately having a panic attack because that article came out that the burger was so popular. And he's like, I don't know how the fuck I'm going to make 1,500 burgers a day because the lines are like out the door all of a sudden.
Right.
And it mellowed out now, and they do fine. But Loretta's Northwesterner. It's amazing. He named it out after his mom. The siding on the inside of the bar is the siding from her house in Montana.
Is that right?
100%. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. If you ever want to just talk about Seattle for like 3 hours, like I'm your dude, man. I love it here. But
that's amazing.
Yeah. I feel like we talked barely about music in the slightest this whole time.
Well, such is the way.
Yeah. But that's also what I love about your podcast too, though. Is like I like that it's a conversational platform. You know how many times I've been asked like the same questions? It's nice to just like sit and bullshit.
Right.
Yeah, I love that.
I don't care what string gauge you use.
I care.
It's not that I don't care.
Yeah. It's not impressive.
I'm not your guitar tech. If you take me out on the road, I will care a lot, and make sure that the right strings go on.
Yeah,
but
thank you.
In this setting, I don't want to know if you can tell the difference between different brands of 9-volt batteries in your TS8, 08, or whatever. That's the question I've gotten, though. I've gotten shit like that. Right. I was talking to Johnny from Daredevil Pedals, who we mutual friend. Great friend.
I love Johnny. Johnny has been nice enough to endorse me over the years and send me some things. And anytime he thinks there's something I like, he sends it my way. And I just got that new fuzz wah that he did with Dunlop, and
amazing.
It's the shit. It's great. It's on the new recordings we're doing with Christian, but It's funny because he's one of those people too that is like just the raddest dude ever in that industry. But I've also met so many wieners in the like music gear industry that it's like I keep them at a distance. Johnny's just like a rock and roller who happens to make pedals, and I fucking love that dude.
Yeah,
there are a lot of wieners out there.
I see him anytime I'm in Chicago.
Yeah, have to. And his band, The Evictions, great band, great rock and roll band. We played with them at Reggie's last time we were there.
Rad. And
they killed. He's a great guitar player, man. But it's funny because the gear world too has like its fair amount of like wieners, but also some of the raddest dudes ever.
Everywhere you go, there are wieners.
True. I'm gonna, when you die, I'm gonna, when your obituary is read and people are saying nice things about you, I'm gonna be like, you know what Mike once said to me? Everywhere you go are wieners.
Everywhere you go are wieners.
That's the next Drowns t-shirt. It just says, everywhere you go are wieners, Mike Squires, then our logo on the back. I would 100% do that. And I'm not sharing any of the profits.
Look, your money's no good here anyway.
Great, because there's not a lot of it. So.
I think I covered that money can't buy you happiness.
Yeah, that's true. Let me ask you a question. Let me interview you for a quick second.
Okay.
You're going out with Ugly Kid Joe.
Yeah.
Right. And have you toured with those guys before?
Oh, yeah. I started touring with it. That's kind of what brought me back out. That's what that band got me going again.
That's so rad. Yeah, I
met them on the Alice Cooper tour that Loaded did, and became friends and hung out with Whit whenever I had the opportunity. Whenever we saw it, we were in the same town. He was living in San Francisco for a while. I was working for a San Francisco coffee company, and we would talk occasionally. He was talking about tour was coming up in 2021 at that time, but it got, all that shit got canceled and pushed back to 2022. But he was just like, oh, Sonny can't do it anymore, and we don't know what we're going to do. And Chris Catalyst can't do it. Those are guys that had stepped up and filled that role. And he goes, and we're just talking. And I never even, I never thought to suggest myself because I had a job and I lived in New York. And I was just like, living a different life. And he was like, well, what about you? I don't know why I haven't thought of that before. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Before
awesome.
I asked my boss or anything.
You just do.
And then I just have been doing it. And it's great. They're great dudes.
Dude, that's awesome.
We've done, big festivals, playing the big, whatever, doing the big stages.
What a fun band. It seems like it would be a good, just like time on stage. Because that band, you could arguably say from their singles alone, they weren't like we're taking ourselves 100% seriously kind of band. So I would assume they'd be a fun hang.
It's a super fun hang.
Mm.
Yeah. What can I say? They changed my life.
That's awesome, man. I love that.
They brought me back to life for 110%.
That's so rad.
Brought me back to life. I owe them a huge debt of gratitude.
My dad, being in the army, was when Bosnia, like Yugoslavia, the whole that was going on, the peacekeeping mission and stuff. My dad was over there for a year. And I would send my dad, like he kept asking me, I was already into music, obviously, at this point, and he kept asking me for like mixtapes because they couldn't bring a lot with them. So I would make these tapes for my dad. And I remember taping an entirety of one of their Ugly Kid Joe album because I made a mix for him and a couple of the songs from one of the records went on there. And my dad was like, can you just send me that whole thing? So I have this like weird like point in my life where my dad was like, will you please record the entire, like on my boombox from CD to cassette to send my dad? Cause he only had a tape player out there.
Right.
So yeah, because he loved Ugly Kid Joe. He was like super into it. So when I actually told my dad
Amazing.
that I was like, oh, I'm going to go talk to my friend Mike on his podcast. He's a great guy. And then I was like, oh yeah. And he plays with Ugly Kid Joe now. My dad was like, does he really? He was like super fucking stoked. Amazing. Yeah, he was super
The thing about Ugly Kid Joe is that they are heavy metal guys, right?
Yeah, of course.
They grew up on Van Halen, Scorpions, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest.
They're riffy,
for
sure.
That's the shit that they love the most. But then they didn't break until like, Nevermind.
Yeah.
Right? And so there was a real sea change at that point, and people were like, and so they had a moment, a massive moment, right?
Yeah, of course.
But then there's a lot of great heavy rock material, and Whit is one of the great singers.
Yeah.
It's a treat to get to play with them.
That's so rad. I'm so happy for you. Yeah. I'm so happy that you're doing that. That's so awesome.
If you'd have told me, I bought that EP and the first record when they came out, and if you would have told me that I would be playing with them all these years later, I'd have told you were fucking nuts.
Yeah. I mean, then that's to bring the whole conversation full circle. That's why it's so great. Like you still love it and believe in it. Yeah. You believe in the rock and roll you make, you believe in this path for yourself. And now you can kind of look back and be like, oh shit, I did do all this cool stuff. And now, you're playing with this band that you used to buy their records, right? And like we get to play festivals with these massive bands we've always loved. And that is such an unbelievable blessing. Doesn't buy you a house in Seattle, but it buys your soul a little bit of respite from how stressful life is.
If I have I've said this before, if I have the experience of, being conscious or having awareness on a deathbed, I just can't imagine. I can't possibly imagine laying there wishing that I had made more money.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
But I will for sure wish that I had thrown myself further into doing the things that I love.
But that's the thing though, is right? Like if you had made more money, you would have less of these experiences. It wouldn't have worked out the same. And that's
possibly. Duff's had some pretty great experiences.
Yeah. Yes. A real talk about Duff real quick. I was at the Punk Rock Museum. We've been there a few times. We're friends with those guys. Some of our stuff is in there, which is really cool. And I feel very fortunate for. But when I was walking through with my buddy Baxter, who works there, I was like, why is there barely any Seattle shit here? was like, that's not cool. I was like, there's like a Gets t-shirt and like a couple flyers. And I was like, where's all the farts shit? Duff's old punk band, the Farts, right? Like, I think there needs to be more representation. That's another band. The Farts were fucking awesome. I won't go into where I was at this time, but I hung out with Duff once. I've met him, I think, a few times, like in passing, but I hung out with him once at a place.
I can guess.
Yes. And awesome dude. But this is also like, we had also met at a party before that too. We had met at a party. And I was still drinking back then. And he was super nice, super cool. And then set Duff to the side. Nice guy, great experience. I got real fucked up that night. And I met Tom Skerritt from Top Gun at the bar.
Yeah.
And I was so wasted. I just went, Tom Skerritt. And he was like, hey. And I was like, my mom loved you in Top Gun. And then I spent the rest of the night wasted trying to find Tom Skerritt as he avoided me the rest of the night. And so it's kismet with, you know, things that you and I know about each other now. It's like, obviously, this is why I don't drink anymore.
Right.
That was a great night. Duff was always been a super nice guy.
He's the best. Also, person who changed my life.
Yeah, of course. Sure. No, I love that you guys are playing together too. It makes perfect sense. How was that acoustic tour?
Well, it was a full band.
Yeah. Oh, was it really?
He played acoustic guitar and electric guitar, but we had a full band.
Oh, cool.
Full rock band.
Awesome.
Yeah. It was amazing.
Rad.
Yeah.
How long was that?
So good. The 3 weeks in Europe and 3 weeks in the US.
Badass.
And then we've done a little bit of recording since.
Cool.
And it's great. I'll play you some.
Yeah, please do. Yeah. So what do you have coming up that's not just the Ugly Kid Joe stuff? Like, what else is going on this year? Because the summer's about to kick up. The busy season's about to start, right?
Well, I'll be home for August and September, and I think that I just did my first Couch Riffs Presents evening, which was Couch Riffs Presents an evening of Funkadelic.
So I saw you
featuring
posting
Maggot
about
Brain.
That. Yeah.
So we performed 20 songs.
Did you just like put the band together for that?
17 people.
And the names on that were like some elites, you know, like some just like crushers.
Seattle, yeah.
Like
players.
People who like keep all these big names going kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
How did it go?
It was great.
That's fucking awesome.
It was so fun, dude.
I love that.
So I think I'm planning my second. Well, I woke up on Saturday morning after that and I was like, well, I guess time to start planning the next one.
That's how you know it was a success, is that you didn't wake up going like, fuck that. I will never do that again.
Well, I learned some lessons and I learned, you know, like what to lean into and what I can do differently to make it run more smoothly.
Okay, cool.
Which the trick to lessons is not learning them. It's retaining the lesson. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to retain that lesson.
Yeah.
But I'm aware of what could go. I'm aware of what could go wrong. Whether I ignore it and just keep going down that road, you know, I can't say.
Do you know what? You don't have to say it, but do you know what artist you're going to do next?
I do.
Cool.
I think.
Cool. Awesome.
I'll tell you that in the works. Well, I don't know. I don't want anyone to
Let me know
steal
afterwards.
my fucking
Let me know
idea.
afterwards. Yeah, it's fine. But I love that you're still wanting to do it because that's fucking cool. Because you could have felt burnt out
There's one in particular
afterwards.
that I want to do that you will for sure be invited to participate.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wait. So when do you?
And I'll tell you that will be the Clash night.
Oh, yeah. Let me know. I'm 100% down.
An unpopular opinion, like I kind of want it to be an evening of Clash featuring Give 'Em Enough Rope.
So it's funny that you say that. I was just about to say, I have some friends who run a podcast out of Federal Way, Des Moines area, and it's called The Second Episode, and they only do second albums of bands. That's their whole podcast. And they brought me on as like the celebrity expert for Giving Them Enough Rope because I love that album.
That's my favorite Clash album.
It's perfect. And there's so much behind it. Like we've been talking for a while. I won't go, like I could nerd the hell out about it, but there's so much behind that record that made it cool at that time because, you know, it was like the label wanted them to have a good follow-up and they wanted them to work with the guy who did like I forget the guy's name, but the producer they wanted to work with who had done like all these like American like rock and roll records.
Right.
And when they met that dude, they didn't like him at all. they didn't want to work with him. He was brought to a show they were playing in England, and Joe Strummer was like in between two songs, was like calling out all the bands in America that he thought sucked. I'm paraphrasing here, but that he thought sucked, and he started naming ones that guy had like produced.
Oh.
And then looked at him and was like, and this song's called "I'm Bored with the USA," and they fucking like the first thing they do is like shit talk that dude.
Oh wow.
And he was like, I'm working with this fucking band, and it turned out great. That is my favorite Clash record.
Yeah.
I still love all of the records besides, besides when we cut the crap. But so like, I love that band, and I love every bit of them. The dub stuff on, like Sandinista that people don't think needed to be there. I still love all of it. But that record specifically, there was so much angst going on, and that was the beginning of them starting to kind of like force their like, I know more about this kind of shit, and like force what, and unfortunately became a divide later. But that record is perfect. I love that you just said that. And
in a perfect world, that's the record that I would feature. And then, so the idea is a greatest hits set, a break, and then perform the record front to back. Right?
For the love of God, will you please do this when I'm not on the road? Please.
But I realize to get people in the house, sell tickets, and get the musicians paid, I have to probably do London Calling.
Yeah, well, yeah, you got to do some off combat rock and stuff. Like you're gonna have to do, Rock the Casbah.
So it would probably be one greatest hit set, and then, but then I don't like. Also, unpopular opinion, I don't love all of London Calling.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that opinion before. Once again, I it's not the one that I put on all the time. I put other records on. I still love that album though. And that band changed my life. So I respect the entire catalog. But yeah, there's, I think you need to give bands leeway, especially when they're figuring out their sound too. You know what I mean? There's a lot of bands that I love, like their first one or two records, but there are songs I skip, and I think that's fine.
Do you have a favorite is that your favorite all-time sophomore effort?
I think so.
By any band?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
What's your second favorite?
Oh,
there's so many.
I've never thought of that. Yeah, for sure.
So many good ones.
I don't know. A follow-up to that, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to think about it.
I think Pinkerton is a masterpiece.
Yeah, people love that. And see, that's the thing too, is like maybe there's something to be said about having to like the weight of your first album doing good enough that you're making a second album. Maybe there's something about lighting that fire that works,
Right.
Yeah. And people fucking love Pinkerton. Like that's the worshipped one, right? It's like, but arguably
they hate it.
Yeah.
Or at least dude hates it. I don't think he's into it.
Well, and arguably that's the one that doesn't sound like everything else. And that's why people like it. So it's like, do you like Weezer then? You know what I mean? It's like, it's one of those things. There's a lot of facets that go into it, but that's why it's so good though. Cause you listen to like them talk about these follow-up records. Cause it is a weird time in a band's life when your first record does good enough that someone's paying for your second one.
You have all the time in the world to make your first record.
Yeah.
Your second record is on the clock.
And so here's the thing. We make View from the Bottom, our first album, right? And Pirates Press passes on it. 10 years later, recently, they just asked us to repress it and it just came out. Gotcha. And so, like, we knew it was good and it was great, but they were right. We weren't ready yet. And then our follow-up album is Under Tension, the album that everyone knows us for. And I think that's the same thing. Like, with Under Tension, we're working with Ted Hutt, producer in LA, who, he's a Grammy Award winning. He won a Grammy for Old Crow Medicine Show. He's worked with the Boss Tones and the Dropkick Murphys and like all these like great, incredible bands. And so that was my first time working with a producer of that caliber, if you will. He's a good friend and I love him, but he's also, in a sense, comes from a bit of the like old school mentality of like whatever it takes to get the best take out of you. And that was my first time with that. But also I had the pressure of being like, well, it's our first full length on this label. I want to make sure it's good. And so maybe there's something to be said about that sophomore record being so good. Like, I think there is, I think there's a beauty to that. Hey, I love Ted. I hope he watches this because he's a great guy. He's just like a tiny little British man who's real sweet.
Yeah.
But he has a bit of Phil Spector mentality at times. Not shooting people, not that part of Phil Spector, but like as far as the like, do it again,
Right.
do it again.
Good.
Do it again mentality.
That's, get the best.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or like making me overly emotional to like, do a vocal take because it's not good enough kind of thing. We got in a fight in the studio during Under Tension where we were arguing, and I was like yelling shit at him. He was yelling shit at me, and then I did, and I was missing a take for a song. And then I went in and I did that take right after the argument, and that's the one that was on the record and it's perfect. But you can also hear during the bridge, I'm throwing a music stand and punching a piano. And he left it in the background because I was screaming at him. And, when we left that recording process, gave him a huge hug, told him I'd talk to him soon, texted him a few days later.
Right.
But when we were in there, it was like, the music comes first. So like our last record that came out, which I love to death, Blacked Out, is a little more rock and rolly, a little more glammy than our older stuff, because I'm a huge glam guy. Like, I love that era. And I think there's crossover between glam and punk that I love, but I'm a huge Slade fan, and I love the Sweet, and T-Rex, huge T-Rex fan. And so we made that record with Ted, and there was a final track. Like, Andy and I wrote 100 songs total for that album.
What?
We wrote for 4 months straight. Ted had us write. This is to prove my point about him being like, again.
Right.
And I knew it was 100 because when I had written like 74 and Andy had written like 26, our bass player Andy, I messaged Ted and was like, we're done. We're at 100. I'm not doing anymore.
He's like, no, you're not.
And no, so he luckily he chose some from that. He was like, okay. So he chose some from that. But there was one more that in the middle of the night, days before, we were in LA for a month. And right before I flew out of Seattle, I woke up in the middle of the night, and my wife is used to this. Sometimes I like wake up in the middle of the night and I have like inspiration hit, and I run to the living room and I get a piece of paper and I get my guitar. And so I did that, and I played 3 chords and sang a melody over the top of it. And I had been reading a book about Johnny Thunders, who I admire hugely. And I love his guitar playing. I love all of his stuff, everything with the New York Dolls and everything. And I wrote the chorus, just the chorus, because I'd been reading this book about his life and his sad ending and all the mystery surrounding his death, which is so weird and kind of beautiful in this, like, I'm a fan kind of way, that there's so much to learn about him in such a small amount of time. And so I ended up writing this song called Born to Die in New York City about his death. And I mentioned, what's weird is that Christian comes later. And I mentioned Dee Dee Ramone in that song because Dee Dee Ramone and him were friends. And Dee Dee said that he thought he owed drug dealers money and he was killed. But there's no proof of that. And the police just ruled it an overdose.
Dee
and
Dee
so,
kind of said a lot of stuff.
True. Yeah. And Dee Dee also wasn't I wouldn't say he was the most
reliable witness.
Yeah, source. Yeah, for sure. And so I write this song in the middle of the night, and, it's about a guy ODing on heroin. Right. I was like, not fun. But I sent it to Ted, and Ted was like, we have to use this. And so Simon, who was playing guitar at that time, played piano on it. He's a great piano player. And we did that song, and we weren't getting the takes that we needed. And a little bit of the lyrics that I'd written in there, it's all about Johnny Thunders, but I had a friend who overdosed, a really good friend that I used to live with in Georgetown and in South Park, actually, over by Duwamish Park. And he OD'd, unfortunately, not too long ago. And so Ted just turns the lights down in the studio after I've done a couple of takes, and he just starts talking to me about that friend. No. And I fucking knew what he was doing. And I was like, I see what you're doing here. You're trying to get me to feel something. Good luck, buddy. And then the track starts, and I just lost it. And so if you listen to the last track on our record, that it's like a ballad about Johnny Thunders, the very last of it, I'm physically crying. And I protested. I was like, I don't want any of that on the fucking recording at all. I don't think it's cool. I think it's weird and uncomfortable and vulnerable. And, but Ted did end up using the last bit of it on the very final line of the record. And I think that's one of the reasons why he's such a great producer. And that's, unfortunately, proves his point of the way that he does things. It's he got it out of me. And I think that's what a good producer does. I hate them half the time.
Of course. Because you're like, no, I think that was pretty good. No.
Yeah. It's sometimes they have to be like,
pretty good is not the target.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, he's fucking great. Have you ever worked with any producers that just like were perfect for you? That you felt great working with them?
I mean, I love Martin Favier. I think he's incredible. I did make a record with Terry Date, which was really cool.
Yeah.
He's a great hang. He's not really a taskmaster, you know. He's like a very stylized engineer, almost like Albini or something. You know, obviously
just like lets you do your thing.
Stylistically very different, but he's like a sonic guy,
like guru.
Yeah, he's really great.
That when we made that record and a couple of our records, we made it King Size Sound Labs in Eagle Rock in LA, and directly next door to that studio is Rob Schnaff's studio. Do you know Rob Schnaff?
I don't.
Rob's great. He did like early Fu Manchu records. I mean, he's done tons of amazing stuff. Fiddler for the younger kids. I think the first record was made at his studio. And he did the Elliott Smith stuff, which I loved. I adored.
Yeah.
And you know, and Rob's become a good friend, and I love him. But I haven't, you know, I know that they were buddies, and obviously since Elliott Smith died, I've never felt comfortable enough to ask him questions. But I'm a huge fan. And Rob Schnaff has a very different approach to where he's like very like, I don't know, man, does it feel good? You know, like it's kind of his approach. But he makes these amazing records. So it was cool when we would make those, or if I'd be mad at Ted or something, you know, because Ted's doing his job. Rob would come over and just be like the nicest dude ever, and like a super kind of like stonery hang. He'd be like, "How's things going, man? Does it sound rocking?" You know, and like I'd have this like good cop, bad cop juxtaposition.
Like, God damn it,
yeah. Where he'd be like, "You'll get it, dude," you know, and like, or he'd bring over gear if he could see that I was uninspired. He would bring over these like, you know, like his 53 Les Paul or something, and like be like, "Try this, dude," you know,
"Try this thing, man. It's a mojo machine."
Yeah, 100%. It looks like garbage and it plays perfect. We on Under Tension, I was pissed about the solo tones that I was getting. I was like, this just to me, it doesn't sound like what I hear in my head. And Rob happened to be in the studio, like he had walked over, and he walks over and goes, "So what's going on?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just like, you know, tube screamer through Marshalls isn't really doing it, you know, like it's not what I'm looking for. It's not, you know." And he goes, "Hang on, man." And he walks over to his studio and he comes back with a Silvertone amp. That's like a 112, and it's got like a diamond cutout for where the speaker is behind, and like 4 knobs. And if anybody knows anything about Silvertone, they were contracted through Sears. So Sears and Roebuck sold them, and so it's like oven knobs on the amp, and it kind of looks like, you know, it's like Atomic Age
50s mid-century piece of furniture.
They're beautiful. They're super cool. Lots of like vibe. Yeah. But so he's like, "Try this out, man." And I plug in this 112 and I put it in there's like an instrument input and a guitar input. And I plug into the guitar input and I turn it on and I'm like, this thing sounds like shit. This is like what I don't know what he's thinking. Like, should I put some sort of pedal in front of this? He's thinking like, you know, a tone bender, and he sees me in his periphery and walks over and goes, "The fuck are you doing?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. This thing sounds like shit." He takes the guitar cable out, puts it in the instrument input, cranks everything to 10.
Yes.
I have used that sound for like all my records now. I have a 1484 that I play, like that I use for that. And it was the greatest solo tone I've ever heard in my life. And it was just the shittiest little amp. And it had like ES spray painted on the side because it was Elliott Smith's, which was super fucking cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so a couple of his gear still was, you know, Elliott Smith's, and it's just, so you've heard it on countless records, but you just didn't know.
The funny thing is about amp tones and whatever, any sound that you hear in a record or even in a live setting, the sum of a band's sound, it is a singular thing with many ingredients. And you're veggie, right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
But you eat curry.
Yeah, love curry.
You got to have some fish sauce in a fucking curry.
Yeah.
And sometimes your guitar sound is the fish sauce. But in the mix, it sounds amazing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think people also don't think about a lot that like when they see a band live, it's usually, I would say the majority of the time, not the gear they used in the studio.
Right.
You know what I mean? And a lot of times there's, like we talked about gain earlier, it's like a lot of times there's things that are drastically different because it sounds better in the mix on a record. You know, like a lot of like even like rhythm tones and stuff that we've done. I'll use like a tone bender. Never had one live. Just never. That's just not my thing.
Right.
But in the record, it's exactly what it needed, you know, or like a weird, like drum tone, or like, reverb on the snare when you wouldn't, like these things that like you'd never do live. And that's what's crazy about like the gear world these days is like, I feel like a lot of younger guys watch videos of bands because it's so readily available. When you and I were kids, maybe you'd get a VHS, someone taped off a TV of a band playing. But now, we could have it within seconds on our phone.
There's a lot of mystery has been,
and that's
unmysteried.
Yeah, but with that same sentiment, though, it's like you did uncover the mystery, but you don't know all of it. So you'll see like a band play live and be like, okay, well, I got to buy this amp and that guitar to sound like that. And then it sounds nothing like the record. And also,
right.
like we were talking about earlier, like it's in the hands too.
Doesn't work like that.
On Blacked Out, I used Jeff Beck. I used some of Jeff Beck's amps on that. And it was super cool. And Marshall sent them over to us and we got to use them. And Rob was there, and Jeff Beck's Super Lead is all over that record that we did. And
wow.
It was so cool. Like he had just passed, and it was really cool that they let me do that. Like I feel very honored, to be honest. But I plugged it in and I started playing it, and it sounds great, right? But it's like nothing special. It's like a modern Super Lead too. It's not like it's like, in the 70s. It just happened to be his. And Rob Schnapp walks in and he goes, "Hey man, is that the Jeff Beck Super Lead?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Awesome. Sounds nothing like Jeff Beck." And they just walked away. And I was like, "Yeah, of course." It's like, because it's just all in how you do it,
Right.
And there's so many guys, like, I think Jeff Beck is one of those, but there's so many guys that like, just, it doesn't fucking matter what the gear is. They're just going to crush it,
Billy Gibbons sounds the same, whether he's playing through a Magnatone, a Marshall, or a Crate.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. It's like,
and I've heard him play through all of them.
Yeah, which is frustrating as fuck for a guitar player. It's like I admire dudes like that, and I aspire to do that. And you could probably argue that I do that to an extent, but it's like, some of those guys, like I'm a huge Roy Gallagher fan. Like he's arguably my favorite guitar player, and that dude, if you look at his equipment, it didn't matter.
Right.
And yeah, he used some cool stuff, but he also had a tone that I think back then people probably were like, why the fuck does he sound like that? He was like kind of nasally and shitty. And if you listen, there's a really famous video of like him playing Shadow Play. It's like just his 3-piece. And he's on TV and he's like running around the whole time. It's like a 10-minute video because half the time he's just running and not playing. He's covered in sweat. And he's not filling space with his guitar tone. The bass and the drums sound great, but the guitar tone is like thin and not big at all. But then he plays and you're like, no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in the slightest. Yeah, because he's just so fucking good. But also not good because he plays a lot of notes really fast. You know what I mean? It's like good because he could string ideas together in a way nobody else had thought to do before. And I think it's a lot about what being a good musician these days is.
I'm still working on that.
Nah, you're good. You're good. Your boy Fluff can fucking play. That dude can, shred, but I could never do the kind of stuff that he does.
He's a riff machine. He's like, yeah.
I wanted to say what's up to him more. I'm going to call him out right now. I wanted to say what's up to him more at that show. When you introduced us, he was like, hey, because he was like listening to the band. Yeah. And I was like, I totally wanted to be like, hey, man, I like the shit that you do,
We spent the day in here yesterday making some videos. He's been generous enough to have me make a couple of videos with him, like gear videos. So
awesome. What videos, sorry?
The gear videos.
Oh, I think he said Cure videos. I was like, sick.
Oh, that's another night that I want to do. I want to do a Cure night.
It would crush in Seattle.
I think so.
Guarantee it would, yeah.
When I moved here, I was like, I didn't know what I was going to do. And for a minute, I was like, maybe those are fun bass lines.
Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of that era of music, Joy Division, obviously, but a lot of that era had incredible fucking bass lines.
Oh, yeah.
The Cult, amazing bass lines. No one ever fucking talks about the bass player for the Cult. Everybody talks about the guitar player,
Right.
But amazing bass lines. So many bands of that era had great bass lines that allowed things like synthesizers to sound cool.
Bauhaus, Love and Rockets.
Yeah,
like David
absolutely.
J's incredible.
Yeah, Love and Rockets. Fuck yeah.
U2 bass lines are interesting. And I would argue that, I mean, U2, especially the early stuff, clearly influenced by Joy Division.
I mean, I would think so.
Clearly, to me, clearly.
It bums me out that you're not playing with Peter Hook at Punk Rock Bowling because I'm going to fucking be there.
His son is playing with him.
No, fuck his kid.
Well,
I was kidding. No. It's
Jack is great.
Selfishly, I'm sure he's right.
I mean, I would love to play with them again. I think they're very...
Are you gone during that time?
No.
Fly down. Fucking see 7 seconds. Come hang out. I'm just saying, if you can, come down and hang out. I'll get you in. We'll figure it out. We'll see 7 seconds finally together, and I'll introduce you to everybody. No pressure.
Maybe. I mean, I have some miles.
No pressure.
Get a ticket.
But I was bummed when I saw Peter Hook because I thought we were going to play together. Granted, we're doing a club show. You know, we're not on the main festival this year. We're doing a club show with the Adolescents and the Stitches, who reunited.
Rad.
Which I'm fucking stoked for. But yeah, I've never seen Peter Hook, so I'm excited for that.
Oh, it's killer.
Oh fuck yeah.
It's amazing.
I'm sure. Well, tonally too. I bet it's just fucking awesome. Like that band in general always had the greatest guitar tones, the greatest like sounds.
That whole band, his whole band is really, really great. They're hilarious guys. They're fun to travel with.
Awesome.
They're road warriors.
Rad.
I was definitely the oddball, like the one American
that'll do it too.
In a touring crew of like 9 or 10 people. Like it was really like one of the joys of my life.
That's so awesome.
It was amazing.
Well, that's, you know, like we were talking about earlier, that's rad that he was cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he could not have been easily.
Well, and then he sat right there too and came and.
Oh, rad.
Yeah, what a dude.
We're getting to a real long amount of time here, but I'm going to continue to ask you these questions that I have.
We should wrap up.
I got one more for you that I wanted to ask.
Come on.
So besides me, who was your favorite guest so far?
Oh, besides you.
I'll pay you for letting me on the show later too. I have the cash in my pocket.
Well, yeah, you'll get an invoice.
It's my name is Christian Martucci.
I don't know who my very favorite guest was.
You've had so many cool ones,
but Frank had some of my favorite stories that you mentioned earlier because I'm a big Frank Zappa fan.
Oh yeah.
And to hear him tell those stories was really, really cool.
It was cool to hear that Dweezil and Ahmet were cool.
Yeah.
I used to watch Ahmet on MTV, obviously, when I was a kid and stuff. And, like, you know, Dweezil's just such a shredder. It's cool to hear that they're cool.
I had Dweezil on the show.
Did you really? I didn't see that one. Oh, man. And he's cool...
I had Zach Wilde on the show, and he's really funny. He's a very funny dude. You wouldn't assume that,
yeah. You think he'd be real serious?
I mean, he can be, but he's he's a fucking card. That guy's a card. Yeah, I don't know. You know, I had this... Like anything, you have an expectation or you have a fantasy. I still have this like email draft in it. That's where I kept my like dream list of people. I had Mark Ford on, which was one of my, you know, he's committed some of my favorite guitar solos in those early Black Crowes records. And I saw him play just 2 nights ago.
Oh shit.
At the Paramount. And talk to him a little bit about that.
That's awesome.
You know, I don't know. Like doing the podcast has been pretty amazing.
That's so rad. I love that you have
meet a lot of people. Some people I know and have known for years. Some people I don't know at all. And some people I know like peripherally. Like it's incredible that you and I only met a month ago.
Yeah. Absolutely. Which is nuts too, because we have so many mutual friends.
Right.
Like it should have happened sooner. And we live 5 minutes from each other, which is nuts.
5 unwalkable minutes.
Shitty train yard minutes. Yes.
Yeah.
As the crow flies. But I mean, that's awesome. That's awesome that you have that avenue to do this though, because these are the kind of conversations that keep music going in general. You know what I mean? It's like you got, if you're not having the fan conversations like this, so like you're a fan of music, you're a fan of this world, you know, then what the fuck are we doing this for?
I I hope that's how it comes off, you know,
I think so.
because
I think so.
that's the feeling.
We got to get Kevin Seconds on here.
I pestered him to be a guest, but it was like during COVID, and I think
But I'll bring it up to him at Punk Rock Bowling. I would love to hear you and Kevin bro down. He's got some amazing stories, and he's just such a genuine soul that I think you guys would really have some great conversations for everybody to hear.
And when I lived in New York, my neighbors were the Equal Vision folks.
Oh, really?
Those were my neighbors. When I lived in upstate New York,
Yeah.
I lived like 50 yards away in this rural, like very rural farming community from the folks who own and operate Equal Vision.
Crazy.
And they owned a bunch of houses in that town, and a bunch of their people lived in the different houses there.
Yeah.
And they had this huge barn in the back of their property that had a gym, and they were like, the gym is unlocked. It had a sauna in it, a full gym. And they were like, the gym is unlocked. Our houses, we don't lock our doors. And if you ever need anything, you're welcome to anything you want. They're
so
the
rad.
fucking the most raddest, generous people I've ever known. And so I spent a lot of time, like I unfortunately didn't spend a lot of time with them because they were working a lot.
Yeah.
And they operate in Albany, so they split their time back and forth. But I used the shit out of their gym and their sauna.
That's so cool.
It was great. I love them so much. I had Kate from the 108 on the podcast, and she was great.
Hell yeah.
And they're friends. She was always, I think when we met, I was wearing a 7 Seconds shirt. Yeah. And we met at the post office where, you know, you had to go, in the town where we live, we had to go pick your mail up.
That's so rad.
Right? And she was like, who are you?
What are you fucking doing here?
Who are you? Why are you in this town? You know, because it was not that town.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. I mean, that was why Dave and Enumclaw and I became friends. Because there was like nobody else around at that time.
I hope Dave's all right. Dave, are you still listening?
I'm sure Dave's still, he's probably listening to the whole thing. I guarantee it. Twice. Yeah, for sure.
Is he counting the amount of times that his name is mentioned, or is he a selfless Dave?
If I was to be honest, he's arguably the most selfless person I've ever met in my life. Wow. But realistically, what I want is I bet he's counting the times I don't mention him where he was responsible for something I did. I bet he's like keeping a tally, and later he's just going to be like, all right, dickheads, let's talk about why you know Kevin Seconds.
Thank you for your service, Dave.
Yeah, no, Dave rips, dude.
Well, I think we should wrap it up because I got to go walk my dogs. I got to eat.
Yeah, that's important for sure.
I've got to edit the video together for a 2.5 hour concert.
What do you eat to look that good? Are you eating like fucking?
I'm eating
only spinach right now.
I'm eating, you know, half a lavash bread.
Mm-hmm. You look good.
Chicken bread. It's nice of you to say. I got maybe 10, 15 pounds to go.
Well, yeah. I mean, yes, to make you feel comfortable for sure, but you definitely look good. Your skin looks healthy too, so you're obviously like eating well because you can tell when someone's been on the road for a while and eating like shit,
right?
Because they just don't look good.
Diet.
Yeah, and that's me like multiple times a year, but
a lot of water.
Yeah,
I'm sweating every day.
Yeah, I went raw once for a year. Well, we'll end on this note. Great story. I went raw once for a year, and I'm pretty sure that that's exactly how we're supposed to eat as humans because I felt like a superhero. But also what you learn is that if you only eat vegetables, you shit constantly. Constantly. Just all day shitting. Just shit left and right.
I probably wouldn't have brought this up.
Yeah.
Just because, but who knows who's still listening.
Because you're so interested in it? Is that what...
But I feel like I barely shit anymore.
Really? Because you're supposed to I think 3 times a day is healthy.
Well, that's how it used to be, and I drink a lot of water, but I'm not I'm in a pretty drastic calorie deficit right now, and it's tight and it's going hard. I have a trainer and she keeps me on track, and she's amazing. Rad. Her name's Christine.
Nice.
You can, we're attached on the Instagram. You should go hire her because she's amazing.
Awesome.
She's a competitive bodybuilder, which is not what I aspire to. I just, you know.
That's sick, though.
Aspire to not be the fattest guy on stage. That's all.
As coming from someone who has done that their entire career, been the fattest guy on stage, it's definitely a good aspiration. Recently I went to the doctor, was like talking, I mean, I'm totally healthy. Nobody's stressed. I'm fine. But I went to the doctor, was talking to him about like losing weight and stuff. And my doctor was like, being cool about it. But he was like, well, because I run a lot. You can't tell at the moment I'm in the off season, but I do, like, me and Jake from the Drowns do like half marathons and stuff every year. And we enjoy running.
Yeah.
Because it keeps us healthy, not the act of it. But I'm talking to the doctor and he was like, what's your end goal? And I was like, well, I want to go an entire year without getting winded from bringing my groceries in the house. And he was like, and I was like,
up 4 flights of stairs.
And that's the truth, though. It's like, and he was like laughing. And I was like, no, I'm not kidding. Like, I want an entire year where I don't feel like shit when I bring my groceries in the house.
Right.
And that's kind of what I go for. So the fact that you're like crushing it right now is incredibly inspiring. Like, that's awesome.
Well,
you're constantly at the fucking gym.
Well, that's the internet thing. Like, we already covered this.
Yeah.
It makes things appear like you're crushing it. Mm. And, I go 6 days a week.
Yeah, that's fucking a lot, dude.
But
that's awesome.
I probably could go 4 days a week all year if I wasn't on a fucking cookies and ice cream diet for 3 months this winter.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that.
So, feast or famine.
Yeah, I get it. On that note, thank you so much for having me here.
Come here.
Oh, that was great.
I wish for all of the greatest shit for you always.
Thank you, man.
Forever.
Thank you. Same, dude. Same for sure. Thank you for having me on the show. And it's just great to have you as a friend now. You know what I mean? I'm so
We're
fucking stoked for that.
Now.
That's 100%. Fuck you, Dave.
Fucking fuck you, Dave.